After a month of brutal training that pushed every one of us to the edge, the calendar flipped. I expected more drills, more endurance runs, maybe another miserable hour in the glacier room. What we got was worse. Professor Sylvia waited for us at ground zero, all first years lined up in front of her. Her cloak snapped in the wind while she scanned the class like she was memorizing faces. "Tomorrow begins your first quest," she said. "You'll be tested in the wild." A restless murmur spread through the rows. "Your destination is Blackroot Forest. It looks small. It looks harmless. Don't let that fool you. Danger hides where you least expect it, and anything can happen." She lifted a scroll. "There are 140 of you. You'll be split into 20 teams, 7 students per team. Your job is simple. Hunt beasts. Earn points." Her tone sharpened as she read the rules. Points by rank. Feral rank, 5 points. Savage rank, 10 points. Dread rank, 15 points. Mythic rank, 20 points. Then she added the part everyone cared about. The color mark on a beast shows its rank. Feral rank beasts carry a green mark on the forehead. Weakest tier. Savage rank beasts carry a red mark. Stronger, but still manageable. Dread rank beasts carry a silver mark. Difficult. Think Grandmaster level threat. Mythic rank beasts carry a gold mark. Killing one takes God level strength. She rolled the scroll back up. The team with the highest score will receive rewards. Merit, credits, and coin. Just like the novel, I thought, stomach tightening. In the story, this was the arc where everything went sideways. A mission that was supposed to be a straightforward first hunt turned into a nightmare when a hidden enemy appeared. A demon lord's servant, or an assassin hired through a devil contract. Something that shouldn't have been anywhere near first years. One of the strongest teams got jumped. They were wiped out almost completely. They would have died if a professor hadn't arrived at the last second. That scene always bothered me for one reason. How did the assassins know exactly where to find the students? Because someone told them. A leak from inside the academy. One of the professors was a traitor. A devil contractor working quietly under Arcadia's nose, feeding information to the demon lord, setting traps from within. A devil contractor was exactly what it sounded like. A human who secretly served the demon lord, living in plain sight. Often they hid as nobles, professors, officials. Their job was to destroy heroes before they could grow into threats. In return, they were granted dark power, protection, or both. The worst part was that nobody knew who they were until it was too late. I knew the traitor's name. I didn't know his face. And even if I ran to the director right now, what would I say? That I'd read it in a novel? With no proof, no evidence, just a name that shouldn't exist in my mouth? They'd laugh. So I swallowed it. I'll let it slide. For now. When Sylvia dismissed us, the whole class rushed to the notice board. I moved with them, scanning fast until I found my team. Group 18. Kaelric Maxwell, Vela Morwen, Emberfell, Renal, Zever, Orion, Kale Ashford. I blinked. Most of these names were side characters in the original story. Background faces. People who barely mattered on the page. Except one, Vela Morwen, a gentle healer who helped Jean during a small arc. Not a fighter. Not someone the story ever returned to. I rubbed my forehead. How am I supposed to work with strangers I've never even spoken to? Still, rewards meant money, and I was basically broke. I'd take the chance. My eyes drifted to the other lists. Group 1, Elysia Von Arctria, Edwin Leonhardt, Jean Halden, Seraphina, Ronan, Evander, Lucian, the main cast. All together, just like a script. Group 3, Cecilia, Darian, Silas, Kalen, Draven, Amara, Eloan. Seeing Cecilia separated from the people she usually stood with made my chest twinge. Not from jealousy, from memory. The day ended the same way every day had lately. Running laps until our legs hated us, combat drills until our hands shook, mana class until my head throbbed. That night, back in my dorm, I packed for the quest. My body ached, mana still not fully recovered, but I'd improved. Even astral severance. I could trigger a weak version now. Not clean, not consistent, but it was there. After packing, I trained a little more anyway. I didn't sleep easily when I felt behind. In my room, I sat on the bed tightening my gloves. My sword leaned against the wall. Moonlight poured across the courtyard outside, calm and indifferent. Cale Ashford. He'd gotten stronger. I'd felt it in the last few drills, even with how hard he tried to hide it. He wasn't the same boy from before. Not the boy from my first life. The one who betrayed us. The one who killed me. Tomorrow we'd be in the same forest. Same event. Same point in the story where everything could break. If the chance comes, if he's alone or exhausted, I'll end it. Quietly. No witnesses. No hesitation. I breathed out slowly. I'll be ready. The next day, morning lit Arcadia like spilled gold. At the East Terminal, all 141st years stood in formation, armor strapped on, weapons at our sides, potion belts tight. The air buzzed with excitement layered over fear. Professor Sylvia stepped forward, holding a glowing vial. If you face serious danger, crush the beacon inside this vial. It will signal the professors. Once we receive it, we will teleport in or pull you out immediately. It's a last resort emergency item. Don't waste it on pride. She handed one to each team captain. Do not try to endure the impossible, she said. If you meet something stronger than you, run. This is a mission of survival, not sacrifice. The message was clear. This test wasn't about acting fearless. It wasn't about dying for a dramatic moment. It was about staying alive, using your head, and moving as a team. If someone is weak, protect them. If someone is strong, don't let them fight alone. If one of you falls, the whole group pays for it. Strength mattered, but teamwork mattered more. Support each other. Know when to fight. Know when to retreat. Live to grow stronger together. Then the team stepped onto the teleportation platform. One by one, they vanished in bursts of light, swallowed by the mouth of Blackroot Forest. Our turn came. I looked around at my group. Vela offered a small, nervous nod. The rest of them shifted awkwardly, strangers forced into a team overnight. I feel awkward, I admitted under my breath. The light flared, and we were gone. A split second later, we landed in the forest shade. Quiet, green, almost peaceful. Almost. The test had begun. The glare of the teleportation terminal died out behind us, and the Blackroot Forest swallowed us whole. The air here was damp and heavy, thick with the smell of wet soil and old bark. One look around, and the name made perfect sense. The trees were huge, their trunks almost black, and their roots weren't buried neatly underground. They bulged up and twisted over the surface like knotted ropes, spreading in every direction until the forest floor looked like a tangled trap. Even walking felt like stepping through a giant web. Above us, the canopy was so dense that sunlight barely got through. What little light did slip past landed in thin, pale streaks, throwing long shadows across the bushes and ferns. The deeper we looked, the more the forest felt like it was hiding something. Far away, something growled. Leaves shifted without wind. The place was quiet in the worst way. We stood in a small clearing, everyone taking a breath and sizing each other up. Group 18. Cale Ash for me. Vela Morwin. Kaelric Maxwell. Eber Fell. Renal. Zever. Orion. Zever stepped up first, rolling his shoulders and cracking his knuckles. I'm a tank, he said, voice steady. I'll draw aggro and keep the beasts off you. Who's doing what? Emberfell raised a hand. Fire Mage. Backline. I'll cover from range. Same, Orion added. Wind and Arcane. I'll stay back with Emberfell. Vela stayed quiet, calm as ever. Her fingers rested on her staff, eyes moving over the group like she was already planning where to stand if things went bad. Healer. No surprise there. Kaelric spoke next. Swordsman. I'll take front with Renhal. Renhal grinned and drew his blade halfway just to hear it sing. Frontline works for me. We cut down anything that jumps us. So that was the shape of us. 3 swordsmen, 2 mages, 1 tank, 1 healer. Balanced. Better than I expected, especially for a squad full of people who were basically background noise in the original story. Emberfell cleared his throat. I'll captain. Everyone okay with that? A beat of silence. One by one, heads nodded. Agreed, I said last. Roles sorted. The next question hit us. Where do we go? That was the problem. Unlike the famous groups in the story, Group 18 wasn't tied to any big plot line I remembered. No clear route. No scripted encounter. We were off the map. All I knew was basic logic. The deeper we went, the more likely we'd run into feral and savage ranks. If we were unlucky, maybe even dread. Let's move northeast, Emberfell said. Less cover that way. Better visibility. Nobody argued. We started out. Somewhere else in the forest, Group 1 was pushing along the western edge. Elysia, Edwin, Jean, Seraphina, Ronan, Evander, Lucian. That team was stacked. They already had trust, rhythm, experience together. Top students, main characters, the kind of group you'd expect to steamroll the early quest. We weren't that. We were strangers, trying to become a unit on the fly. Maybe that was the real test for us. We walked deeper until the light thinned out and the air turned colder. The forest got quieter the farther we went. After about an hour, it felt like the whole place had gone still. No birds, no wind, no insects buzzing. Just our footsteps, leaves crunching, twigs snapping. Too loud in all that silence. The kind of silence that makes you feel watched. Orion lifted a hand. "Wait," he whispered. We froze. Something rustled ahead. Then a shape slid out of the bushes. A beast about the size of a large dog, lean and wiry, muscles tight under light brown fur. Its eyes were sharp, hungry, and right in the center of its forehead, a bright green mark pulsed faintly. Zever exhaled slowly. Green. Feral rank. Low tier. The creature growled and dropped into a crouch, ready to spring. Even low tier meant nothing if you got careless. "I'm up," Zever said, slamming his shield into the ground. Kaelric and Rinhal moved to either side of him, swords out. Emberfell, Orion, cover, Kaelric ordered. Orion nodded, already weaving wind into his palms. "I'll boost your speed," Emberfell called, fire flickering between his fingers. Vela and I stayed half a step back, close enough to jump in, far enough not to get in the way. Vela's healing aura was already forming, soft and pale around her staff. The beast lunged. Zever met it head-on. Crack! It slammed into his shield like it hit a wall and bounced back, shaking itself. "Now!" Zever shouted. Kaelric and Rinhal rushed in. Rinhal cut low, forcing the beast to hop back, right into Kaelric's rising slash. Steel bit into its side. Not deep, but enough. It howled. Emberfell flicked his hand, a small burst of flame streaking past Zever's shoulder and scorching the beast's rear leg. Orion followed with a sharp gust that knocked it sideways. The thing staggered, scrambling for balance. Kaelric went for its neck. The beast ducked and snapped at his arm, missed by inches. That opening was all I needed. Mana surged into my legs. I shot forward. Swoosh! My blade carved across its back, clean and hard. It shrieked, stumbled, lost focus. Rinhal didn't wait. He leapt and drove his sword straight through its chest. Thump! The beast convulsed once, then collapsed. Silence returned like a wave. We stood there breathing hard, not from exhaustion, but from the sudden release of tension. If a feral rank could hit like that, savage ranks weren't going to be a joke. "Good teamwork," Orion said, brushing dirt from his robe. Vela stepped to Rinhal, laid a quick healing spell over a shallow scratch on his arm. "You're fine," she said softly. Rinhal flexed his hand, then grinned at the rest of us. 5 points on the board. The beast's green mark flickered, then its body began to dissolve into drifting particles. Our first kill, our first points, and a reminder that this forest wasn't here to play nice. "Let's move," Emberfell said. "If we linger, something bigger might come looking." We regrouped and started walking again. The awkwardness from earlier was fading. We weren't close yet, but we were working. Functional. Solid enough. And now the Blackroot's deeper shadows waited ahead.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
We faced another feral-ranked beast after about 40 minutes of trekking deeper into the forest. While it wasn't easy at all, the creature was larger than the first, with claws that scraped against bark and teeth like jagged rocks. The beast suddenly jumped out from the bushes and attacked Zever, our tank, while growling angrily. Zever raised his shield just in time, but the beast slammed into him hard enough to knock him back several paces. Orion and Emberfell cast their magic, sharp wind attacks and bursts of fire, but the beast was very quick, dodging side to side between the trees. Renhal and Kaelric charged from the sides, swords flashing as they tried to pin it down. I kept low and waited for the right opening. The beast was quick, unpredictable, and far more vicious than the first one. The fight dragged on for several minutes, each of us getting bruised or cut in the process. But finally, a well-timed combo of Emberfell's flame burst and Renhal's spinning slash brought it down. We parted in silence, circling the beast's unmoving body. "That was rough," Zever muttered. "Barely got out of that one," Orion added. I looked at the glowing patch on the beast's head. Still green. Another feral rank. 10 points in total, I said to myself. "Still alive, too." Kaelric smirked. "Thanks to Vela," Renhal said, nodding toward her. "Without her healing, I'd have a hole in my gut right now." Vela gave a small smile. "Just doing my part." We all sat for a few minutes, catching our breath. "We've got 2 hours left," Emberfell said, checking the time crystal. "But the way back will take at least 1 hour, which means 1 hour to hunt." We all exchanged glances. According to the novel, this Group 1 was supposed to encounter at least 3 feral-ranked beasts and 1 savage-ranked before returning, which meant they are far ahead. As we prepared to move again, Emberfell and Renhal exchanged a few words. "Hey, Ember," Renhal said, wiping sweat off his brow. "Are you planning to roast me too, or are you saving that fire magic for the actual beast?" Emberfell raised an eyebrow. "Please, if I roasted you, the stench would attract every beast in the forest. I'm sparing the team." Renhal laughed. "Generous of you. You know, for a guy who flings fireballs, your aim is dangerously close to friendly fire. Don't blame me if your reflexes are slower than a sloth on sleeping pills." Emberfell shot back. "Hey, I'll have you know I'm quick. It's just hard dodging when your backside's half on fire." Vela chuckled softly from behind. "Maybe don't stand in front of the guy who's literally glowing." "Right," Orion added. "He practically yells incoming heat every time he lifts a hand." Emberfell rolled his eyes, but grinned. "Glad to know I'm appreciated." Renhal nudged him with an elbow. "Hey, if we make it out of here alive with a few extra points, I'll buy you a fireproof cloak." "Deal, deal. And maybe I'll teach you how to not swing like a drunken boar." They laughed, and I stood in silence. Even in a deadly forest, moments like these made us feel like a real team. 1 more hour, I said to myself. "Let's make a little more progress." We all stood up and about to move, but boom! A thunderous blast shook the clearing. Flames erupted just a few meters away from us. Debris flew. A shockwave knocked dust and leaves into the air. We stumbled back, shielding our eyes. And then, out of the smoke walked a figure, dressed in black from head to toe, a long cloak fluttering in the wind. A black mask covered the face. The figure's presence felt like a dark blade drawn in silence. "An assassin," shouted Zever. My heart dropped. "What?" I broke into a sweat. According to the novel, 7 assassins were supposed to appear, 5 attacking Group 1, and 2 targeting Group 3. But this one was here. Only one. Does that mean they've split differently? Could it be 4 assassins went after Group 1, 2 for Group 3, and 1 for us? Whose evil plan was this? Does this mean everything I knew from the novel is about to change? Is it because of me? The assassin didn't say a word, but from the controlled aura around him, sharp, calm, and murderous, I could tell. He wasn't some scout. He was a professional killer. Strong, skilled. This wasn't supposed to happen, and we were not ready. I instinctively stepped in front of Vela. The assassin raised his hand, and in a flash of movement, he dashed forward. Zever and Kaelric were the first targets. He struck with terrifying speed. A single strike to the ribs. A follow-up kick to the skull. Both collapsed, unconscious, barely able to react. "No!" Orion shouted. "Who the hell are you? Why are you attacking us? We're students of Arcadia Academy. They'll not spare you if you hurt us," Renal said, clutching his sword. But the assassin didn't reply. "Ember," I yelled. "Crush the vessel now." Emberfell didn't hesitate. He reached into his belt, crushed the beacon. But the assassin spoke, his voice muffled but cold. "It's no use." He lifted his hand, and a magical symbol appeared briefly in the air surrounding the open area. This sigil likely activated a barrier. "I've sealed the area with a barrier spell. It'll take 10 minutes for your signal to reach your backup." He drew a curved blade, and in 10 minutes, they'll only find your corpses. My breath caught in my throat. We're doomed. I had been watching his every move, the way he used both blades and spells. A dual type, a swordsman and a mage. That means close combat is useless. Fighting him with magic alone wouldn't be enough either. This time, I shouted, "Orion, Emberfell, don't hold back. Use ice magic directly on his body. Zever, grab his legs and hold him down. Kaelric and I will each grab both of his arms. Vela, heal whoever's hit. Don't stop." They followed without question. Zever, though dazed, lunged forward and tackled the assassin's legs, locking them with all his strength. Kaelric and I dove in from the sides, grabbing the assassin's arms before he could swing. Orion and Emberfell unleashed frost magic. Crystals of ice surged over the masked killer's cloak, slowing his movement. "Grah!" The assassin growled, and then released a powerful burst of dark magic. That magic looked like streams of black lightning, which shot out violently and hit directly to us, injuring our arms and legs. But we held on. Vela cried out loudly. Her skin had turned pale from exhaustion, and she was using healing magic again and again without stopping. The effort was so intense that her mana was exhausted. We suffered severe injuries. Our skin was cut deeply and were bleeding heavily. But despite all the pain, we didn't back down. Because we had to. Because if we didn't, we would all die. We had only one choice: kill the assassin or be killed. The assassin struggled. "You're wasting your strength." His blade twitched, but Zever wrapped his arms around both legs like iron chains. We shouted through the pain. "Hold him!" Magic burned around us. But we didn't let go. "Only 2 minutes to hold." "We just needed 2 minutes," I shouted. If this is what happened to this character right now, then why didn't the novel give our group a more important role? Why were we just background characters? We were barely holding on. Bloodied, bruised, exhausted. If we hold on any longer, we'll all die here. My vision blurred. Pain tore through my body. But I reached out anyway. With the last of my strength and fading mana, I lunged forward. My body screamed in pain, but I pushed through, grabbed the assassin's dagger from his back. I shouted and drove the blade into his chest. "Ch-ch-ch-ch." His body jerked, then slowed. His breath caught once, then stopped completely. He died while we barely held on. I killed him. My hands trembled, still wrapped around the hilt of the blade. The weight of what I'd done hit me all at once. I had taken a life. Zever, Kael, you saved us. We'd be dead if not for you. I stood in silence and pain. But I had no time to process it, because suddenly my eyes widened. Cecilia, her group, they're in danger right now. I turned to the others, breathless. "Let's go," I shouted. "Our classmates, they're under attack. If we don't move now, they'll be killed." But our team was barely standing. Zever and Kaelric were unconscious. Vela was collapsed from mana exhaustion, and Orion couldn't even lift his arms. Emberfell walked forward. His clothes were ripped, and blood was on his face. "I'll go with you," he said. "The others can't move. Let Vela heal them when she wakes up." We didn't waste another second. Despite the pain screaming in our bones, Emberfell and I took off at full speed. I knew the location from the novel, where the ambush happened, roughly 200 meters northwest. We sprinted with everything we had left, ignoring the burning in our legs and the ache in our lungs. Please don't be too late. Boom! A huge and very loud explosion happened on the ground. After the explosion, Thick smoke and broken pieces of dirt and rocks were blasted into the air and scattered all around. 3 members of Cecilia's group had already collapsed on the forest floor: Draven, Amara, and Elysia. Their bodies were bruised, bloodied, and barely conscious. They had taken down 1 assassin. The other 3 were still fighting desperately, locked in a fierce and chaotic duel against assassin in black dress. They moved quickly and skillfully, their swords slicing through the darkness as if they were death itself coming to kill. The assassin clicked his tongue and muttered, "First let me kill that girl." His eyes turned to Cecilia. Cecilia was breathing heavily, her hands shaking with the last bit of healing magic still glowing. Sweat was running down her forehead. She had almost no magic energy left. The moment they lunged toward her, I arrived. She created a small barrier to block the attack. Without hesitation, I leapt in front of her, blocking the path between her and assassin. Cecilia's eyes widened in disbelief. "Yo, you came. You should run," she said, voice trembling. "They'll kill you." I turned to her, blood dripping from a cut on my legs. My body was beaten, torn from the last battle. But I gritted my teeth. "I've got this," I said, my voice low and steady. The assassin smiled in an arrogant way, like he was sure they were going to win. "So, you're the hero now?" he said. "Let's see if you can withstand this." He raised his hand, and dark energy surged around him. Black lightning flashed around his sword as he ran to attack. I drew my sword. Everything I had, all my stamina, all my mana, all my will, I poured into one final strike. My limbs felt like iron, my lungs burned, and my vision was starting to blur. But still, I shouted, "Astral Severance." A strong flash of light came out from my sword as I swung it. The attack didn't kill the assassin, but it hit him hard enough to send him crashing backward, skidding across the ground, his mask cracking slightly. Everyone froze. Cecilia, Ember fell. Everyone stood wide-eyed, staring at me, as if I had become someone else entirely. That sword art, it can't be, but I couldn't hear them anymore. My body gave out. Blood trickled from my lips. I collapsed right in front of Cecilia. The injured assassin growled and stood, staggering toward me with his blade raised. "Assassin, I have underestimated you. Now let's see what you can do next." He came forward charging me, but before he could strike, a thunderclap split the air. Professor Orwin suddenly appeared from the sky like a shooting star, moved lightning fast, pulled out his glowing sword, and instantly killed the assassin in one move. So quickly the assassin died without a sound. Elsewhere, in Group 1's location, the situation was dangerous. Elysia lay on the ground, her arm twisted, blood pouring from deep gashes along her side. Her sword, cracked and bloodstained, lay just out of reach. Her hair was now tangled with sweat, dirt, and blood. All around her, the forest was a battlefield. Elysia, this was not supposed to happen, I could barely remember. Although we encounter enemies, but it was no supposed to happen right now. Why? Just why? Of the 5 assassins, for now lay dead, felled, hard-fought. Each assassin had targeted a different member of Group 1. Elysia had clashed blade to blade with one in a brutal duel. She held her own until her arm was broken, and she collapsed after slashing her opponent's throat. Gene Halden fought with unmatched speed, barely surviving as he drove his sword through his attacker's heart at the last second. Serafina, Ronan, Evander, and Lucian had fought as a unit, pushing their limits to overcome 2 assassins who struck with terrifying coordination. The battle left all 4 of them bruised, bloodied, and unconscious. The leader of the assassins remained, the strongest among them. He stood over Edwin Leon Hart, whose body trembled from wounds. His uniform was torn apart, his sword chipped, his face pale with exhaustion. The assassin leader smiled. "You're still just a student, yet so strong. I have underestimated you." Edwin coughed, blood leaking from his lips. The assassin's expression turned cold. "Die." He raised his blade, ready to strike the final blow. But then, a blur of movement, a flash of white. Professor Sylvia landed. She didn't shout. She didn't hesitate. Her leg lashed out in a single, flawless motion, a kick that struck the assassin leader square in the chest. The impact echoed through the forest. The assassin was thrown violently through the forest, flying like a cannonball, and hit a huge rock so hard that the rock broke and cracked behind him. Then he fell down, lying still and not moving. Dead. Sylvia stood silently for a moment, the leaves rustling around her like whispers of relief. Then she turned to her students, most of whom collapsed and were unconscious. Only Edwin remained conscious, barely. "I'm sorry I was late," she said quietly, her voice thick with guilt. "As your teacher, I'm ashamed." Meanwhile, in Group 3's clearing, the ground was torn up by swords' marks, spells, and blood. I lay on the forest floor, my body broken and burning with pain. Beside me knelt Cecilia, her hands trembling as golden healing light pulsed from her fingertips. Her mana was nearly gone. My eyes were about to close. "You saved me again," I whispered, my voice barely a breath. Cecilia shook her head softly. "No," she said. "You saved me." Then I closed my eyes due to exhaustion. I opened my eyes slowly. The world came back into focus. White ceiling, soft-lined sheets, a faint scent of herbs in the air. My body was almost recovered. I tried to sit up. "Where am I?" I muttered, my voice was roughed. "You're awake," a voice called out gently. I turned toward it. A young woman in a white and blue uniform stood nearby, wiping down a table. Her Arcadia badge shimmered faintly under the infirmary light. "You're in the Academy's medical infirmary," she said with a relieved smile. What a relief! We were worried. I looked around the room. There were 20 beds. 3 of them were occupied by Zever, Kaelric, Rinhau, and myself. Vela and Orion must have recovered first. Or maybe they were in a different room. And those from Group 1 must have recovered too. "How long have I been out?" I asked, my throat dry. 3 days, the caregiver replied. "You were completely unconscious when they brought you back." 3 days? I fall back against the pillow. On the day of the battle, after we collapsed from our injuries, the Academy's rescue teams had arrived in time. The emergency alerts were successful, and rescue teams quickly arrived to save the students from danger. Those who were injured in Blackroot Forest were carried back to Arcadia on emergency stretchers. The entire Academy went on high alert. But the news didn't stay inside Arcadia. No, by evening, it had exploded across the city of Elysia. In the city of Elysia, a large number of people had gathered or crowded around the front area of the Academy. Reporters and news anchors gathered, pressing against the outer security lines. One woman embedded shouted over the noise. "Is it true that multiple first-year students were attacked by unknown assassins during a training mission?" Another reporter pushed forward, thrusting toward the guards. "There are rumors the students defeated 6 assassins. Can you confirm that? Who sent them? Was this coordinated terrorism?" A third yelled. "Did any student die? Are children safe in Arcadia Academy? What does the headmaster have to say?" The guards stood firm, armor gleaming in the sunlight, shields raised to block the press. One of them raised his voice. "This is official Arcadian territory. Please clear the gate. The Academy will issue a statement soon." But the crowd only grew louder. "Tell us the names of the students involved. Is this related to the Demons faction?" Despite the chaos, no reporter was allowed entry. The gates remained sealed. Inside Arcadia, rumors among the upper years. While the press circled outside, the news had already reached the 2nd and 3rd year students. Whispers flew through the dormitories, training halls, and private sparring rooms. "Did you hear? A bunch of first years took down 6 assassins during their field quest." That's ridiculous. First years? Against assassins? No joke. I heard Professor Sylvia personally confirmed it. One of the students even fought one-on-one that injured a dread-level killer. What? Not possible. We haven't even faced anything that dangerous in our first year. In the upper training barracks, a group of third-year students trained with sharpened blades. One of them spat to the side, clearly annoyed. TCH, bunch of rookies getting all the attention. I just don't like that the first years are getting more credit in a week than we did in a year. They raised an eyebrow. Or maybe they're just stronger. His eyes narrowed. They got lucky. But deep inside, Many upper-year students weren't just annoyed, they were uneasy. Because no matter how they justified it, the truth remained. A first-year team had survived a professional assassination squad. And not just survived, but killed some of them. That kind of power wasn't normal. Back in the infirmary, I stared blankly at the ceiling, the scenes of that day looping in my mind. The blood, the shouting, the overwhelming presence of death hangs thick in the air. And then, Cecilia's voice, soft and shaken. "You saved me." My hand curled into a fist beneath the blanket. That battle, it wasn't supposed to happen. Not to us. According to the novel, that event never occurred like this to other groups. So why did it happen to us? Why now? Was the story beginning to change? Back in the academic office, Arcadia Academy, the large council room buzzed with tension. 15 teachers sat around the oval marble table. The walls had fancy cloth banners with the school's symbol. At the far end of the center sat Principal Aldrich Valen, a tall, broad-shouldered man with streaks of silver in his beard and a gaze that could silence a room. To the right sat Professor Treneth, head of the department Barlow. Beside, there was Professor Grindervoss, arms crossed tightly. Professor Sylvia stood near the corner. "Luckily, none of the students died," said Professor Treneth. "But that luck won't last if this happens again." "There were 7 assassins," said Grinder, his voice with anger, "armed with dark magic and coordinated tactics. They were skilled." "No," said Principal Aldrich, steepling his fingers. "They weren't." A beat of silence followed. The atmosphere turned colder. "They knew exactly where the students would be placed," said Professor Calden. "That wasn't a coincidence. This was planned." "Agreed," said Professor Yulia grimly. "They waited. They struck precisely during the field test, when there were no security. Someone must have leaked information. An inside job, Professor Elra, a female teacher. Is that what we're suggesting? We can't point it out, Orwin." I examined the bodies. 5 were killed in combat. None carried identification. No guild brands. No kingdom insignias. And not a single trace of summoning tags or communication scrolls. "No evidence at all?" Aldrich asked. "None," Orwin confirmed. Worse, the corpses bore no lingering magic signatures. Whoever sent them knew how to cover tracks. Professor Sylvia spoke. "I failed to reach my students in time. They were nearly killed because of me." A few teachers glanced at her, some with sympathy, others with judgment. First years shouldn't have been able to survive such an assault. It means our first-year students are strong. Or we're facing enemies who underestimated them. Aldrich, Sylvia raised her voice. The students were stronger than expected. Some showed terrifying growth, but their resilience and teamwork saved lives. Orwin nodded. All of them fought well beyond standard expectations. Principal Aldrich said, "We cannot afford to start turning on one another. This is now a crisis. We are under attack." He turned toward the large arcane projection crystal in the center of the room. With a flick of his hand, it displayed images of the Blackroot Forest aftermath, scorched ground, broken trees, bloodstains on leaves. "We will begin an investigation immediately. Anyone who had access to student deployment logs will be reviewed. Surveillance magic is to be doubled." He turned to Sylvia. "Professor Slivia, despite the timing, your class survived and performed admirably. But from this point on, all first-year missions will be accompanied by at least one supervisor. We won't take the risk again. All the students in our academy are our future heroes." Sylvia nodded silently, guilt still in her eyes. Aldrich then looked to Orwin. "What the one you killed? No hints of contract magic? Summoning circles?" "None," Orwin answered. "But the way they moved, the coordination, those weren't mercenaries. These were trained killers, loyal to something, or someone." A cold silence fell. "They were after students only, but why?" said Grinder, narrowing his eyes. The attack was too focused to be random. No one answered, but a few eyes flicked toward Sylvia. Principal Aldrich's voice dropped low. "From this day forward," he announced, "Arcadia's gates will remain closed to all outside visitors unless directly authorized. Security formations will be embedded at every teleportation point and forest perimeter. And," his gaze sharpened, "we begin hunting for the traitor within." Without wasting another second, I should go since I am all right. Surprisingly, my body felt lighter. The pains from days ago, the bruises, the burning exhaustion, the searing cuts, was gone. I flexed my fingers slowly, raising my arms. No pain, no trembling. "Oh, you're finally up," she said, relief in her voice. "You've been unconscious for 3 days." 3 days? I echoed, rubbing my eyes. "What about classes? Did I miss anything?" "The academy called off all first-year students' classes for this week," she replied calmly. "After what happened, it was necessary. Everyone's recovering." I nodded slowly, thanking her, and carefully climbed out of bed. Despite recent healing, I still feel the memory of being in that forest, even though it had already happened. I left the infirmary and made my way down the quiet stone corridors of Arcadia. The halls were unusually silent, empty and tense. But as I stepped outside into the main courtyard, I could feel it. The gazes, from the balconies, the windows, the walkways above. Students, mostly second years and third years, stood watching me. Their expressions were unreadable. Some are curious, some impressed, and some narrow-eyed and guarded, as if unsure whether to admire me or fear me. They must have heard the rumors. They must have known what happened in Blackroot. I walked faster, looking away from their eyes. My uniform was clung uncomfortably to my skin. It didn't take long to reach my dormitory building. As I stepped into the quiet of my room, I exhaled sharply and sank on my bed. 3 days, I muttered to myself. I was out for 3 whole days. If I'd been training during that time, if I had acquired even another skill, I clenched my fists. Damn, I'm still weak. But then I paused. All the wounds were gone. My muscles didn't ache. It was like my body had quietly crossed a threshold while I slept. Did I go through some sort of growth after that battle? I talked to myself. I've wasted time. I stood up and walked to the mirror, staring at my reflection. I didn't have time to waste. Even a single minute is precious. I have to grow stronger, to prepare for everything. What I remembered from the novel could vanish in the next battle. I had to act while I still had fragments of knowledge from the novel. I had to extract more from the novel, secrets, skills, advantages. But first, I needed money. Backup elixirs, healing tonics, mana potions. Without them, I wouldn't last another real battle. But how? Then I remembered something from the novel's early chapters, details most readers overlooked. The guild system. It functioned outside the academy, meant for adventurers and combat specialists. So the guild handles field work, beast hunting contracts, body part collection of beast, bounty missions, etc. While Arcadia trains heroes within its walls, it won't hamper to the heroes, and I don't want to go to their way. Unlike them, I have no such luxury. They had talent and fame. I had only my will and a few spoilers from the novel. I needed to get stronger, faster, and the guild was my best shortcut. Without wasting time, I grabbed my cloak. I didn't want to walk around letting everyone know that I was one of the first-year students who survived the assassins. I needed to stay hidden, both now and in the future. I stepped through the teleportation terminal and headed to the city's East District, the mercenary market. The market square was surrounded by stone buildings, and the air was filled with strong smells, like herbs, elixirs, and metal. I walked straight to the large notice board outside the Adventurers Guild Hall. Dozens of papers were pinned to the board. Requests for collecting beast parts, mana crystals, tracking monsters, even escort missions. Then I saw one. A request stamped with a silver badge. Urgent. Hunter support needed. Target. Savage rank beast. Reward. 170 gold coins. Role. Support/collection. Duration. 1 day. Guild contact. Varn. Rank C. A savage ranked beast. 1 tier above feral. Far stronger, faster, more deadly. Normally, I would have passed it without a second thought, but the reward. I tore the notice from the board and contacted them on a call, then headed where the guild was located. The guild receptionist, a red-haired woman, glanced up. "Here for a job?" I nodded, voice low. "Yes." She raised an eyebrow. "You're a student? Because you look so young to work." I shook my head. "Freelancer. Just a helper. I'm not here to fight, only to work as a collector." She studied me for a second longer, then sighed. Report to Varn's group at Terminal 17 within the hour. I nodded and left without another word. Back at Elysia's home, Elysia sat quietly by the window while a gentle breeze moved the curtains softly. Her injuries had mostly healed, thanks to the Academy Infirmary's advanced treatment methods. It had taken her a full day of rest to regain enough strength to return home. But her mind was far from peaceful. I can still remember some parts of the future. Not everything, but small pieces. Just enough to know that things are starting to change. Events aren't happening the way they should. The timeline, the future I once knew, is beginning to shift. Her fingers tightened. Those assassins, they weren't supposed to appear this early. They came out of blue moon, unexpected. That event was meant to happen far later. She made an angry face. Kale. That name burned in her mind. He's hiding his strength. The rumors aren't just rumors anymore. They say the skill he used that day, just a glimpse, was comparable to the skill used by my friend, Gene Halden, the rank 3. She slowly exhaled. I missed the chance to kill him. I had it, and I lost it. She changed her grace. Even if I manage to kill him in secret, the Academy won't spare me. They protect their own, and I'd be labeled a murderer, a traitor. I'd be hunted, disgraced, executed. A pause. And even if I tell the truth, that the world Cale Ashford is the villain who destroys the future, no one would believe me. I'd sound insane. Paranoid. The heroes would rally behind him, not me. I should not rush right now. Her eyes flickered with a mix of sorrow and calculation. In the upcoming event, I'll take advantage of the chaos. There will be an opportunity. I just have to be ready. But I alone am not enough to face him. Even if I join forces with my friends Cecilia, Gene Halden, and Edwin, we still might get killed. She gasps. The game has changed, Cale. But so have I. Back at the Academy, a gentle, quiet sound from the healing magic still filled the air inside the Academy's infirmary. Sunlight came through the tall windows, shining soft, warm light over the beds where injured students rested. Just an hour had passed since Cale left. Zever blinked slowly as his senses returned, groaning as he sat up. Ugh! My head feels like it was crushed by a boulder. Beside him, Kaelric stirred with a quick movement, pushing himself upright. Where are we? He muttered, eyes adjusting to the light. The infirmary, Zever replied, rubbing his temples. Last thing I remember, we were surrounded. Then Cale. Kaelric nodded slowly, realizing that. He saved us. That sword technique, it was nothing like what a first year should be capable of. At that moment, a young woman stepped in, the Academy's caregivers. You're both awake, she said softly, carrying a tray of water and herbs. That's a relief. Zever shook his head. Where's Cale? The young lady glanced at the clock. He left about an hour ago, just walked out. Kaelric exchanged a look with Zever. Just an hour? Zever stood abruptly, ignoring the stiffness in his legs. We need to go. We need to thank him. If it weren't for Cale, Kaelric agreed, rising as well, we'd be dead. The caregiver blinked. Wait. You just woke up? You shouldn't be running. But the two had already rushed out. Out in the courtyard, their footsteps pounded against the stone paths as they sprinted toward Cale's dorm. Third year and second year students walking nearby turned their heads, curious at the commotion. Aren't they first-year students? Why are they running like that? The two ignored the stairs, breath short but urgency driving them forward. When they reached Cale's dorm, Kaelric didn't hesitate. He knocked twice and then swung the door open. Cale. Hey, Cale. Silence. The room was empty. He wasn't there. Zever stepped inside, eyes scanning the sparse furnishings. He's gone. Kaelric's brows furrowed. Where did he go? Outside, students whispered, watching the two figures standing in Cale's doorway. We will thank him later when he comes back. Okay. At the city's East District, after an hour of travel through bustling streets and narrow alleys, Cale arrived at Terminal 17, a crowded checkpoint at the edge of the Eastern District. The air was heavy and full of different smells. All around, merchants shouted as they sold their goods, calling out prices and deals. Adventurers gathered in groups, checking their weapons and talking excitedly about the journeys ahead. The busy sounds of footsteps, laughter, and conversation filled the air, creating a lively and tense atmosphere as everyone prepared for the dangerous expedition to come. Standing near the terminal's gate was a group of 6 people, tough-looking, battle-hardened, and alert. Their leader, a confident stance, glanced toward Kale as he approached. "So are you our collector of the day? You look young. Are you a student?" the leader asked with a curious smirk. Kale shook his head calmly. "No, I'm just a freelancer." One of the group members chuckled and said, "Don't worry. We got your back. We'll protect you." The leader nodded in agreement. "We don't leave anyone behind." The group approached the terminal officer and paid the entry fee, 120 gold coins, for passage into the nearby forest dungeon. Swish! The group stepped forward together, boots crunching on the leaf-strewn ground. Varn, the leader, stopped and turned to address them clearly. "Listen carefully. Our mission is simple. We're here to hunt only savage rank monsters. If we run into any monsters weaker or stronger than savage rank, don't engage. Run back to the junction, and we will wait and search again until we find what we need." Kale nodded, eyes scanning the forest shadows as they moved deeper under the thick canopy. The atmosphere changed instantly. The sunlight dimmed as thick branches blocked the sky, and the distant calls of unseen creatures echoed around them. Step by step, they moved quietly. The forest looks deadly. The ground was damp, patches of moss covering hidden roots. Kale's hand rested lightly on the hilt of his bag, which hung by his side to carry materials and tools. His senses were sharp, eyes constantly scanning the dense undergrowth and shifting shadows. They were no longer in the safety of the city. This was the heart of the unknown, a place where danger could spring from any direction. Each step had to be deliberate, each sound judged. Then, rustling, a low growl rolled through the trees, followed by a sudden snap of branches. "Something's coming," Varn warned, raising a closed fist to signal the group to halt. From the left, a hulking creature emerged between 2 trees. It had the body of a horned gorilla, but its skin was dark gray. Its eyes glowed faintly, and on its forehead was a deep red marking. A red mark. "Savage rank," Zyra, their scout, whispered. "Positions," Varn barked. The group spread into formation. One tank head forward to the front, shields raised. The mage slipped behind a tree, and the healer retreated further back, beginning a low chant to prepare a defensive spell. The beast roared and lunged forward with brutal speed. The shield bearers charged with a loud clang, the impact sending both back a step. Kel didn't move at first. He simply watched their fighting skill and coordination. "Strike its right leg. It's heavier," he called out. Varn reacted instantly, charging with a shout. From behind, the mage Renan raised his staff, firing 2 quick fireballs. One hit the B side, the other its ribs, burning flesh with loud bursts. Then, with sharp focus, he launched a 3rd fireball. It shot through the air and struck the red mark on the beast's forehead, stunning it as sparks burst from the impact. The beast couldn't, wide open for the final strike. Now, one of them moves forward carrying a dagger, thrash on its forehead. The monster dropped with a final sound and died. "Nicely done," Varn said, wiping blood off his blade. The healer, a calm woman named Lita, rushed forward and placed her glowing hands over the wounds. "Stay still," she said. Threads of warm green light closed the cuts and soothed the pain. Kale, meanwhile, he crouched beside the corpse and used a sharp dagger to cleanly extract the mana core. Then he moved on to the bones, removing the thick armored plating and strong thigh bones, valuable for crafting materials. Finally, he cut clean slabs of flesh, storing them carefully in enchanted wrapping to prevent decay. One down, then they began to search for another one. Hours passed. In that time, they faced one savage-rank beast after another. No rest, no warning. Each battle tested their coordination and endurance, but they moved like a seasoned unit. By the end of a few hours, savage beasts had fallen. While the others caught their breath, Kale quietly harvested the mana cores, bones, and flesh from each kill, his bag growing heavier with valuable materials. As their supplies ran low and fatigue set in, Varn called for a retreat. They returned to Terminal 17 and made their way back to the guild house. Inside, after unpacking, Varn approached Kale and handed him a small pouch. 170 gold coins plus 20 silver coins as an extra, he said. You did a great job today. Next time, join us again. I'll make sure you get even more. Kale gave a quiet nod, pocketing the coins. The job was done. For taking this much risk, and I get this much coin only. Clearly it is not enough. I need to go to a higher rank guild. Kale left the guild. If I were back in my world, Earth, these 170 gold coins would be worth around $8,500. But here, earning that much isn't easy unless you're a noble, a royal, or a high-ranking hero. Let's slide. He walked down the streets of the East District, heading toward the open market. The smell of roasted meat, herbs, and fresh ink from scroll vendors mixed in the air. Kale stopped in front of a clean, wooden storefront with a sign that read Valden's Potions and Curios. Small vessels of bottles of various colors lined the shelves inside, glowing faintly under crystal lamps. As Kale entered, a bell rang above the door. Behind the counter stood an old man. "Welcome," the shopkeeper greeted warmly. "Looking for something specific?" "I need 1 mana restoration elixir," Kale said, glancing at the shelves, "and a few for training, strength, stamina, or anything useful for the body." The shopkeeper nodded, pulling out a small vessel. "This is our standard mana restoration elixir. Potent, quick-acting, good for combat or recovery after fighting or during the combat. But do not consume too much." I nodded. He placed the bottle on the counter. "That one's 15 gold coins. Expensive. I shouldn't spend all my money I will need at the near future. Give me 5 more of this." The man turned and picked up 4 more bottles. "Are there any other potions that are beneficial for body?" An old man turned again and picked a red-orange elixir and a green one with swirling herbs. "This here's Vigor Elixir for stamina, helps during physical training. That's a strength booster, temporary increase in muscle output. Each one is 15 silver coins. In total, it cost 15 gold coins and 30 silver coins." "Are you a student?" old man asked. "I shouldn't tell anyone and must not let anyone know about me." "No, I am just a freelancer," I replied. Kale pulled out the coins Varn had given him. I gave 90 gold coins, and the old man gave back 10 silver coins. He stepped out from the shop and went to have some lunch. He ate huge amount as usual at some of the restaurant, and some people were watching in shock. Then he nodded to himself, time to train. He left as fast as possible. 30 minutes. 30 minutes later, Kale reached his dormitory, walking past the quiet halls of Arcadia's Academy. The evening sun was nearly gone now, and it was almost dark. The corridor was calm. Most students were either out in the city or resting after a long day. Kale locked the door behind him and dropped his bag onto the desk. He exhaled slowly. 2 days. He glanced at the calendar posted beside his shelf. We have 2 more holidays left. Perfect. He sat on the edge of his bed, his mind already organizing a mental checklist. Today and tomorrow, I'll focus completely on mana control. The day after tomorrow, I'll begin training that skill at gymnastics. Kale reached into his cloak and pulled out his elixirs he bought. 5 mana restoration elixir and 2 enhancement potions. He kept them gently on the table. Before he started to train, he took a light shower. After taking a shower, he changed clothes and began. He crossed his legs, sat upright on the floor, and placed both hands on his knees. The night passed in silent focus. Kale didn't leave his room. He didn't speak to anyone. He repeated basic control exercises, drawing mana, circulating it through his limbs, and then releasing it in measured pulses. The next day followed the same pattern. He didn't push for power. Kale knew better. Control first, then quantity. By evening, the second day of rest was coming to an end. Then came Sunday. Kale headed straight to the Academy Gymnastic Hall. He stood alone in the hall. The astral severance. Kale exhaled slowly and took his stance. Legs grounded, core firm, arms steady. Then, with a deep breath, he moved. He swung the sword, and the mana behind it dispersed too early. Again, he reset, centered himself, and tried once more. and again, and again. After several failed attempts, his mana was starting to dip. He narrowed his eyes and reached into his pouch, pulling out a small glass vial filled with swirling liquid, the mana restoration elixir he bought from the shop. Kale hesitated for only a moment before drinking it. Sip. The liquid was cool, smooth, and slightly bitter. The effect was immediate. Whomp. A surge of mana rushed through his body like a wave crashing into a dam. His veins felt as though they lit up from the inside. The intense energy erupted as restored mana flooded every veins in his body. TCH, this thing's strong, very effective. The elixir was extremely effective. In mere seconds, his drained mana pool was filled, almost full. With this much, I can probably unleash Astral Severance twice more at full power. But he also remembered the shopkeeper's warning. Don't drink too much in a short span. They'll overcharge your core, and your body won't keep up. It's like flooding a cracked dam. You'll feel recovered at first, but then the backlash hits. Kale took a deep breath to steady the flow, letting the mana settle inside him. Then, gripping his sword tightly, he moved again. This time he exhaled and focused. Astral Severance. The blade sliced through the air, and this time, it was a little more powerful than last time. He held the stance for a moment longer, then dropped his arms, panting softly. It hadn't been perfect, but had been real. The skill responded. He could feel it closer than before. For the next few hours, Kale continued training for the same technique, using what remained of the elixir's power. He didn't try to push for more than two unleash. Rather, he learned to swing the swords. He'd felt the limit. Any further would tear his body, and he needed a last. By the night, the mana had faded, and Kale's breathing slowed. It was the start of a new week. At Ground Zero, the central training field where the first-year trains, all the students had gathered. Even though the injured students were healed and back, they still looked weak. Kale stood among them, his legs still aching from the weekend's training and sleepless nights. Professor Sylvia stepped forward from the edge of the field. She held a clipboard in one hand and a stopwatch in the other. Start. As soon as the professor gave the signal, all the students ran forward quickly and forcefully. Their footsteps made loud sounds as they hit the ground. Kale didn't move right away. His fingers closed around a small glass vial. Inside, it was the stamina restoration elixir he had purchased. He hesitated for only a moment. Then he drank it without waiting much time. It is just to try this elixir, but I will not drink next time, especially during training. It was bitter, with a slight burn, but as it settled into his core, Kale felt the tightness in his muscles begin to ease. His heart beat steady now, his breathing smoother. Without wasting another second, Kale sprinted forward. His legs no longer felt like dead weight. In fact, they moved with surprising ease. Each stride smooth, each step were powerful. The stamina restoration elixir was working. Lap after lap, he ran. The world blurred around him, but he was very focused. 10 laps. 20. 30. Time passed like a whisper. By the time most students were struggling to stay on their feet, Kale had already passed his 50th lap. Sweat soaked his shirt, but his legs still moved. 70. 80. Finally, at 98 laps, Kale slowed. His body trembled from fatigue, but the fact he had come this far shocked even him. That elixir, wow, he muttered between breaths, wiping sweat from his brow. It is very effective, but only for a short duration. Just as the effects wore off, a sharp ache returned, and his lungs started to burn. The elixir had merely bought him time, and now the real exhaustion crept in. After nearly 2 hours, the training whistle blew. Students gathered once again at the center of the field, many collapsing to the ground. Professor Sylvia stood before them, arms crossed, but this time there was a rare softness in her gaze. She took a breath and spoke clearly, her voice steady but quieter than usual. "I'm sorry for what happened last week," she said, eyes on the crowd. The incident should never have occurred, and there were no escort teachers also. The students stood still. Fortunately, no one was killed. Her voice dipped slightly at that. But that doesn't change the fact that you were put in danger. As your teacher, I accept full responsibility. I'm truly sorry. A pause. Then she raised her head, firmer now. From now on, I will personally escort and oversee you all in every event. You will not face danger alone again, not under my watch. Some students exchanged glances. Cale stood quietly in the back, hands on his knees, catching his breath. She glanced at the paper on her hand, then addressed the group. We have 3 months and 15 days left until the first semester ends, she announced. During that time, there will be 2 major events, followed by the first semester examination. A low murmur rippled through the students. Each event scores marks. The first event will take place in just 1 month. The second, 1 month after that. Both are essential, not just for your rankings, but for your growth. To get expelled or advancement may depend on your performance. Events? Tests? He still didn't fully understand this world's power system, and now it seemed the pressure was only increasing. Sylvia turned a page on her clipboard. But before we begin today's combat class, she continued, I will announce the results of last week's trial event. Everyone was silent instantly. All eyes were on her. In the first group, Sylvia began. Group 1 scored the highest, taking down 2 Savage rank beasts and 2 Feral rank ones. Total points, 30. A few heads turned toward a group of confident-looking students who stood with pride. They didn't cheer, but the silence on their faces said enough. Sylvia continued reading. The numbers dropped steadily as she moved down the list. Then came the part Cale had been waiting for. She glanced briefly at the clipboard, then said, Group 18, 5th place. Total points, 10. 5th place wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good either, especially when the difference in rewards was steep. However, from 5th place onward, no coins were earned. Murmurs spread through the crowd, especially among those who had placed lower. Some looked disappointed, others frustrated. Sylvia lowered the clipboard. Now that the results are out, we will begin the combat training. Meanwhile, Zever, Emberfell, and the rest of their group approached Cale, their faces serious and respectful. Zever stepped forward first. Cale Ashford, he said, voice steady, we're thanking you. If not for you holding off that assassin, we would have died. Emberfell nodded beside him, his eyes showing sincereness. You didn't have to help, but you did. The what? Not to myself? Cale looked at them for a moment. His expression didn't change. He simply gave a small nod and replied, Okay, nothing more. There was an awkward pause, just a flicker of it, before Zever gave a short laugh and shook his head. Man of few words, huh, he said, not unkindly. Vela gave Cale a final glance before the group stepped away, returning to their side of the field Osif she had fallen for him. Cale stood still for a moment. He hadn't done it for thanks. He didn't even know why he stepped him back then. But let this slide, time to train. The class goes as normal, training for heat, cold, mana class, etc. That evening, at the podium stood a second-year student, Cale Virehart, the number 1 ranked swordsman of the second year. He stood with the ease of someone who believed the world owed him something. Cale was known throughout Arcadia Academy, not just for his skill with the sword, but for his arrogance. Born into a noble family with rich and political influence, he carried himself like royalty. Rules rarely applied to him, and when they did, he ignored them anyway. Professors tolerated him, students feared him, and wherever he went, trouble followed. Cale was the source of more disciplinary reports than most second years combined, but he never faced consequences. After all, who would dare punish the Virehart heir? He looked down at the gathered first years with clear dislike in his eyes. These are the new recruits everyone's talking about. It's too much for first-year students. What's so special about them? A bunch of weaklings who barely survived an assassination and think they deserve praise. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Try surviving a duel with someone like me. Then maybe I'll care. If any of you think you're special, prove it. Otherwise, stay in your lane. He walked away dramatically that evening. The next day, Jean Halden, a first year with a fierce grin and energetics, strolled confidently down the cobbled path outside the Academy's potion storehouse. He was humming a tune, a little out of key, but full of life. Today's the day I finally get that mana elixir after 4 days. One bottle is enough to blow up half the practice field, if you know how to use it right. He took from his store manager and walked away. He turned the corner toward the entrance of the Elixir storehouse and collided into someone. Hard. Thud. Gene stumbled back a step, blinking. Damn blind. He barked, automatically looking up. Then his expression shifted. His eyes narrowed. The figure he'd bumped into was none other than Cale Virehart, the rank 1 swordsman of the second-year class. Rich, arrogant, and perpetually surrounded by lackeys, Cale was infamous for stirring trouble wherever he went. Cale straightened his pristine black uniform, brushing off imaginary dust from his coat. He glanced at Gene like one might inspect a bug. Watch where you walk. First year, Cale said coldly. Some paths aren't meant for bottom feeders. Gene scoffed, stepping closer. Bottom feeders? You ran into me, you pampered windbag. Cale's eyebrow twitched. Do you even know who I am? You ain't worth knowing, Gene said. Cale's expression darkened, but before he could reply, a storehouse assistant stepped out holding a small tray. There is only one mana potion left in stock today. Whoever reaches it first gets to take it. No reservations, no special treatment. But Cale moved just as fast, and Gene stepped back holding his mana elixirs. A pause. Give me that, Cale said through gritted teeth. The assistant wisely backed away. Cale's eyes gleamed. You really want to fight over this? Do you think you're strong just because you killed those weakling assassins? Cale? Not for the elixir, Gene said, but your face has been asking for a slap. Without warning, Cale shoved Gene backward. Gene didn't stumble. He suddenly moved forward. All right, let's get on this, spoil brat. Cale? The clash begins. Gene pulled out his 2 swords from his back, and it made a sharp metallic sound, like steel sliding from its case. They collide. Gene Halden is a swordsman, and he uses 2 swords. Clang! Gene attacked with speed and wild energy, but Cale fought back with calm skill and strength. With a heavy swing, Cale twisted his body and brought his broadsword up just in time to parry Gene's twin blades. The impact rang like a clash of thunder. Sword screeched against sword as he deflected the wild strike, and in the same fluid motion, he shifted his weight forward and threw a powerful downward slash aimed straight at Gene's shoulder and got cut at an instant. Whack! The blow forced Gene to skid back across the stone floor, knees bent, boots scraping. All right, Gene muttered, wiping blood. You hit slower than I expected, spoiled brat. More second-year students began to gather behind Cale, Darius among them, with 4 others in tow. Darius, cold and commanding, crossed his arms. A first-year student, do you think you're strong? He said. You haven't earned anything. Gene pointed 1 sword at them all, grinning. Respect isn't given. It's taken. One second-year stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. You want to try and take respect? Right here. In your dream, Gene charged. Before the situation exploded further, a voice cut through the air. Enough. Edwin Leonhard appeared at the edge of the crowd, hands in his pockets, eyes sharp with quiet authority. Behind him were Lucy, rank 9, Ronan, rank 7, and Evander, rank 19. Edwin stepped forward. All of them are not friends, though, but as their classmates being bullied, they couldn't stand it. You really think ganging up on one guy proves you strong? Darius smirked. It proves he shouldn't open his mouth if he can't back it up. Evander's gaze was cold. You already proved enough. Ronan cracked his knuckles. Or we'll take it from here. Lucy walked to Gene and helped him up. Thanks, Gene said. Try staying on your feet then, Lucy replied flatly. Darius locked eyes with Edwin. You want to settle this properly? Darius grinned. Good. I want to see what's so special about the first years everyone's whispering about. The battle breaks out anyway. But Gene couldn't hold it in. Gene says he's not someone people whisper about. He's the thunder before the chaos. He's confident, bold, and about to make a loud impact. And with that, he dashed forward again, twin blades swinging. A second-year moved to intercept. Steel met steel, loud and fast. Clang, clang. A peaceful ground erupted into combat. Ronan faced off against one of the second-years, exchanging heavy, thundering blows. Lucy dodged the magic attack, then hit back with a magic-powered punch that was strong enough to slam her enemy into a wall. Evander calmly moved through 2 enemies, his sword deflecting both attacks without losing ground. In the center of the chaos, Edwin and Darius clashed, 2 rank 1s. Darius swung fast with deadly precision, but Edwin countered every motion, blades ringing with fury. "You're worth fighting," Darius admitted. "I'm not here for your compliments," Edwin said, parrying hard and sending shockwaves through the ground. Jean tried to keep up, but Kale met him with brutal strikes that forced him back again. Crack! A strong kick sent Jean flying into a bench. "Jean!" Lucy shouted, dashing to cover him. Ronan took his place, roaring as he clashed with Kale. Dust exploded around them. Onlookers gathered. The fight is stopped. Clap! Clap! A sharp sound echoed. Professor Elysia stepped out from the shadows. "Really," he said, "picking fights in the street like thugs? This is an academic surrounding, not a brawl pit." The fighting stopped instantly. "You want to throw hands? Do it in the arena. One more outburst like this, and I'll personally assign you all to manual labor, trimming every bush in Arcadia." The students went silent. "I don't care who started it," he said, silencing all protests. "Now get back to the academy." As the groups began to separate, Darius turned back. The second-year student laughed, brushing dirt off his sleeve as he looked at Jean and the others. "You got lucky today," he said coldly. "But luck runs out fast in Arcadia." Kale stepped forward, voice louder now, speaking to the whole group. "Tomorrow, let's duel at the arena training ground during the challenge. If by some miracle you win, I'll admit it was luck. But if you lose," he paused, eyes narrowing, "it'll prove what we already know. Your little group is nothing but weaklings playing hero." "What the hell? If we win, it means it is luck, and if we lose, it means we are weak?" "What are you talking about, Gene Halden?" Without looking at them, they turned away. "Let's see if you can back up all that noise." The next day, by morning, the entire Arcadia Academy was humming with whispers. The rumors of the clash between the first-year elites and the second-year rankers had already spread like wildfire through the dorms, hallways, and classrooms. Students from all, swordsmen, mages, tanks, and healers, were all talking about it. "Did you hear? Gene Halden went head-to-head with Darius. They're fighting again tonight. In the arena. Is it true that Edwin Leon Hart will be facing Kale? I heard Professor Elysia himself will be watching." Even professors pretended not to hear the chatter, but many kept their ears open. Some even adjusted their schedules to make sure they'd be free by evening. Kale's morning. Kale, as always, kept to his routine. The sun had risen onto the training ground. His shoes hit the dirt track rhythmically as he started running. His body had changed, grown stronger. By the time 2 hours had passed, Kale had finished 98 laps, his uniform soaked with sweat, but his steps still stable. "I'm getting faster, almost at 100. After running, they moved to the body resistance classes, standing beneath the controlled blasts of magic and energy. Heat resistance class, cold resistance, training mana class. At break time, inside the classroom, as the other first-year heroes, Jean, Edwin, Elysia, Ronan, Lucy, and Evander, stepped out of the classroom for a discussion about the evening challenge, the room grew quiet. Kale remained behind, leaning against the window ledge, arms crossed, gaze lowered. The air was still, until he heard soft footsteps approaching. "Kale!" A gentle voice called. He looked up. Cecilia stood near him. She walked closer, calm, graceful, and with a hint of hesitation in her voice. "I never got the chance to say this properly," she said softly. "Thank you for saving me during the attack." Kale blinked, caught off guard. "I only did what anyone would have done." She tilted her head. "No, not anyone would have thrown themselves in front of a blade like that." He paused, then said, more quietly, "You saved me first. I just returned the favor." Then Cecilia's soft eyes looked downward, and her expression changed. She noticed Kale's worn shoes, damaged and nearly falling apart. His uniform was patched and torn a little bit, and his hands, wrapped with half-torn bandages, bruises darkening his skin. "You're hurt," she said, almost in a whisper. Kale looked down as if just noticing. "It's nothing," he muttered. But Cecilia stepped forward without another word. She reached out, her hands glowing faintly with a warm light. "Hold still." Before he could protest, she gently took his hand. The bruises slowly faded, replaced by the warm tingle of her healing spell. Kale's eyes widened. Her fingers were soft, her touch careful, and for a moment his heart skipped. His face turned slightly red. He looked away. "You didn't have to do that," he murmured. Cecilia smiled gently. "I wanted to heal you." She let go of his hand. Kale stared at his now-healed knuckles, flexing them once. "Thanks." She nodded. Then she turned and walked out quietly, leaving Kale standing there, his face still faintly flushed, hand warm from where she touched it. At the academy canopy, the 6 students gathered at the academy. Jean Halden leaned back against a bench, grinning despite the bandage on his shoulder. They talked about how they got into the problem. Lucy scoffed. "But most of the first years are struggling." "But not us," Ronan said, cracking his knuckles. "We held our own." Evander remained quiet, eyes half closed, listening. Jean stood up and made a wide gesture with his hands. "Anyway, I may have thrown a few insults, and he definitely threw the first swing." "You provoked him," Edwin cut in, raising an eyebrow. Lucy crossed her arms. "Next time, don't try to solo an entire squad of upperclassmen." "Come on, Lucy," Jean grinned. "Admit it. You missed the thrill." "I missed my lunch," she said in an emotional way. Then Elysia spoke, her voice cool and certain. "I want in on the challenge." Everyone turned to her. "You're serious?" Edwin asked. Elysia nodded. "I heard about the challenge being arranged tonight in the arena. If it's not an official match, I want to be part of it." Ronan smirked. "Didn't think you were the type to ask." "I'm not," she replied, adjusting her hands. "But after what happened in the forest, I've realized something. The second years underestimate us. I want to show what they're talking about." Evander opened his eyes finally. "We'll have to fight smart. Kale and Darius are brutal. They're the top rankers of the second year." "Let them bring anyone, anything," Ronan said, voice calm and low. "We'll still win." Edwin looked at each of them. Then it settled. "Today, we will settle our score." Jean bumped his fists together. "We crushed them. No more talk. Let's make them regret ever mocking us." The 6 stood in a quiet moment of unity and tension building like thunder before the storm. The day of the class has ended. Evening, the buzz before the battle. As the sun began to set, the academy's atmosphere was busy. Second years and third year dropped message among each other. Meme, come fast, the battle is about to begin. Student duel. First year elites versus second year rankers. Time, 5 p.m. Location, Ground 1 Arena. Hundreds of students filled the upper balconies, seating rings, and even levitating platforms. Professors stood in the shadows, arms crossed, watching with interest. "Do the first years really think they're smart and strong?" one of them said from third-year student. "Please, surviving one assassination attempt doesn't make you hero." Another laughed, flipping his cape behind his shoulder. "I'll be impressed if they even last 5 minutes." Nearby, a tall man stepped into view, his uniform trimmed with gold, a silver badge gleaming on his chest. Kale's older brother, third-year rank 3, known as the Silver Reaper for his brutal efficiency in duels, had arrived. He stood silently at the edge of a raised platform, arms behind his back, his silver hair tied in a warrior's knot. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "That's Kale's older brother. He doesn't show up for just any match. He wants to see how badly the first years get crushed." Kale's older brother looked calm and serious on the outside. His face showed no emotion, but deep in his eyes, there was a subtle feeling. Maybe he expected something great from Kale, or maybe he was disappointed in him. Cecilia and Kale came together. Though it was a non-official challenge match, all were gathered. Osif Big Tournament was happening, and they cannot ask them to leave either. The first-year students arrive. Edwin Leonhardt, Elysia, Jean Halden, Ronan, Lucy, and Evander, as they stepped onto the ground one. As the first year entered, students began to murmur. "That's them. I heard Jean picked a fight with Darius." They're brave. I'll give them that thumbs up. Jean stretched his arms, enjoying the attention. Elysia, however, didn't share the sentiment. TSK. Elysia, Jean, you said this was just a non-official spar. Why are there so many people here? Jean raised his head, a teasing smile on his face. Well, guess the whole academy wanted to see who gets their pride today. Elysia sighed and turned away. Ridiculous. The second-year students enter. Silence fell over the arena as the second years arrived. Kale Weierhart, the rank 1 second-year swordsman. Behind him came Kaigaku, rank 2, with a greatsword on his back. Darius walked with an arrogant look. Kaito, Seo, and Renjo followed. Their presence pulled murmurs from the crowd. There's Kale. They even brought Kaigaku. Are they trying to crush the first years completely? This just got serious. Kale's eyes scanned the first years with open disdain until they stopped on Elysia. He walked a little closer, placing a hand on Oni's sword. Hey girl. His voice rang out clearly. You sure you want to get involved in this? What if you get beat to a pulp and mess up that pretty face? He laughed mockingly. The second years behind him laughed as well. Won't be good for your reputation if the so-called genius of the first years goes home in bandages, he added, tilting his head. Elysia didn't talk back. I'd be more worried about yourself, she replied calmly, stepping forward. Because once I'm done, even your sword will be ashamed to be near you. Kale and Cecilia at the arena. This match I know first year wins, Kale. The battle had begun. Kale moved first, stepping lightly on the floor. His shoes barely made a sound. His sword was drawn, but he didn't rush in recklessly. Instead, he circled, watching stance, searching for any weakness. Lucy's hands glowed faintly with mana. Her magic was her strength, but she was not a weakling with a wand. She could fight close combat too. Her eyes locked on the opponent, and with a sudden burst, she sent a blast of blue mana toward him. Jean cracked his knuckles. Remember, this is non-official, but that doesn't mean we don't give it our all. Elysia looks determined. Let's show them what we are made of. Without hesitation, Kale rushed forward, eyes locked on Edwin, the strongest. Around them, the other combatants prepared for their battles. Jean hauled in against Darius, Elysia facing Kaigaku, Ronan against Kaito, Lucy versus Seo, and Evander challenging Renjo. Kale's eyes narrowed, and with a swing, he charged Edwin. The clash of steel rang through the arena as Edwin fought with a sword where steel meets steel. Kale's strikes were powerful and aggressive, relying on brute force and speed, but Edwin's defense was flawless, his swordwork smooth, precise, and strategic. He deflected each blow, waiting for the perfect moment. Nearby, Jean lunged at Darius with fiery aggression, his twin swords flashing in a whirlwind of rapid strikes. Darius was strong and experienced, but Jin's unpredictable style kept him off balance. With a sharp move, Jean took by clash and took Darius' swords and forced him back, the crowd erupting at the first year's boldness. Elysia's blade flared as she swung powerful blasts at Kaigaku. There was unusual, swordsman and mage clashing in, but Elysia's adaptability gave her the edge. She struck with another swing that shattered Kaigaku's defenses. Ronan released the strongest defense on Kaito and released air punches constantly, who tried to close the distance. Ronan moved quickly and carefully, making sure to stay just out of reach. He kept hitting Kaito with fast attacks until Kaito started to lose balance and finally stepped back. Lucy's fists glowed with magical energy as she moved smoothly against Seo. Seo's magic was strong, but Lucy was faster and used magic to make her punches even stronger. Though Lucy was healer, she's a strong fighter too, thanks for that brutal training Professor Slivia gave. With a last powerful kick, Lucy knocked Seo down and won. Evander stood calmly while facing Renjo's heavy hammer attacks. He blocked and returned attacks carefully and quickly. When Renjo tried a strong blow, Evander dodged and quickly cut him, ending the fight. In the center of the arena, Kale attacked hard, swinging his sword in wide swings. Edwin blocked and fought back, pushing Kale backward step by step. Not bad for a first year, Kale said, wiping blood from his lip. But you're still not as good as me. Edwin's eyes shine with anger. You're wrong. Edwin tricked Kale with a quick move and cut his side. Kale got hurt, but didn't want to give up. They kept fighting quickly, steel hitting steel and sparks flying. Finally, Edwin saw a chance. With a strong strike, he knocked Kale's sword out of his hand. Edwin, with his sword, pointed at the chest of Kale. Do you still wish to fight with your hand and with my sword? Kale raised his hands to show he gave up. The crowd cheered loudly as Edwin put down his sword, winning the fight. One by one, the first-year students won. The second years stepped back, shocked by their surprise loss. Gene, so is this called luck? They stood in silence. Up in the stands, the third-year students murmured among themselves, some amazed, others clearly jealous. Did they really win? No way, first years. Kale glanced to the side and froze for a moment. Professor Elysia stood quietly near the edge of the arena, arms crossed, her sharp eyes watching everything. That's strange, Kale thought. In the novel, he wasn't there. His heart skipped slightly, but he let it. The next day, news had spread like wildfire. First-year students had defeated second-year rankers in a match. Hallways echoed with students retelling the battle, and everywhere Kale went, he heard their names whispered everywhere. Even Professor Sylvia had heard the news. She didn't say much, but she was proud. The classes went on as normal. During break time, Kale sat at his usual seat by the window, chewing quietly on a piece of dry bread, when Cecilia approached him. Kale, she said with a soft voice. He looked up. Cecilia held a small box in her hands. Without a word, she placed it in front of him. What's this? Kale asked, blinking. Open it. Kale slowly lifted the lid. Inside was a neatly folded academy uniform, but then his eyes froze on the final piece. A pink undershirt. Pink? Kale asked, staring. Cecilia replied. It's just a little color. You can wear the white one instead if you want. But I thought it might suit you. I had only pink and purple shirts. I had no choice. You really didn't have to give me something like this. I'm just helping you, she replied lightly, brushing her hair behind her ear. Kale lowered his eyes. His face turned red. It was true. He hadn't been able to afford new ones. All the money he had was going into potions, training, and saving. Still, no one had ever done something like this for him before. I'll pay you back, he said quietly. Cecilia shook her head. No need. Just, you do normal training, and if it gets torn again, I will give you another one. Cecilia laughed softly. Figures. Kale staring at the pink shirt, unsure whether to be annoyed, touched, or just grateful. But anyhow, he felt thankful to her. Before Kale could respond, Elysia appeared from the corridor. Her eyes immediately narrowed the moment she saw the two of them together. She didn't stop. She walked straight to Cecilia, reached out, and grabbed her wrist firmly. Stay away from him, Elysia said. Cecilia looked startled. What? I'm serious. Alicia's gaze didn't hesitate. You don't know what kind of person he is. Don't get close to him. Kale stood frozen, stunned. His lips parted slightly, but no words came out. He hadn't done anything. But the way Elysia looked at him, it was like she was staring at a monster. Cecilia pulled her hand free, gently but firmly. Elysia, you're overreacting. Kale saved me. He protected all of us. You weren't there, Elysia said, eyes still locked on Kale. You don't know what I saw. He's brutal, dangerous. Kale's eyebrow went up. His mouth opened again, but nothing came out. Why was she saying this? What did I do to her? Why does she look at me like I'm the enemy? I'm just a commoner, he muttered under his breath. A silence settled. Cecilia glanced between them. Why is she acting like this all of a sudden, Cecilia? Elysia finally turned her back. Let's go, Cecilia. You shouldn't be around him. But Cecilia didn't move immediately. She gave Kale a look without a word and left. Whatever this was, whatever story was playing out between them, he didn't know his part in it. But it was clear, in the novel, Elysia, the main character, was never portrayed as unfriendly toward her classmates. There was no description suggesting otherwise. But why was she acting like this to me? Is it because I am weak? Anyway, let's slide. Kale sighed inwardly, brushing the thought aside. My elixirs, potions, and coins, they're running out. He glanced at his half-empty pouch and felt sad. I need to earn as much money as possible, and fast. There was no choice. Between training, survival, and upcoming events, every coin and resource mattered. He couldn't afford to fall behind. Not in this world. That thought had been echoing in Kale's mind for days, but now it felt urgent, like a blade pressed to his throat. His elixirs and money were running out. His mana potions were down to 1 bottle. He had so little money that even the sound of it felt empty and depressing. Between constant training, the Academy's challenges, and the events, he needed resources. Potions, gear, scrolls, weapons, everything. In this world, strength wasn't free. Every step forward came at cost. I can't survive like this. Not if I keep scraping by. He stared out over the distant horizon. If he didn't act now, he would be killed in the future. But unlike the others, Kale had something more than raw effort. He had knowledge. I have to use the novel's idea. That's my only advantage. Somewhere in the middle chapters, there was a strange plotline. A lost land, a hidden ruin never fully explored in the story. It was mentioned briefly in footnotes, in between the arcs involving the heroes and the demon war. No one important in the novel ever ventured there. Not the protagonists. Not the villains. It was as if the author had forgotten it, or abandoned the arc midway. But that only made it more mysterious. I remember it clearly, 3 map fragments. They unlock access to the Lost Land. Each fragment was scattered across 3 different cities, sold by obscure merchants or hidden behind quests. The price? Unknown. The danger? High. But the reward? If the novel's lore was even halfway accurate, those map fragments would unlock not just a dungeon full of fortune, but a sealed skill. Something outside the original plot. If I can get that skill, I might finally stand a chance. He exhaled, eyes narrowing. I don't know if the story changed. I don't even know if the Lost Land still exists. But I have to try. Whether it was real or a dead end didn't matter. Because doing nothing was worse. At least this way, he could take control of his own fate, step beyond the limits the world had forced on him. He clenched his fists. I'll buy the map fragments. I'll complete the quest the original heroes ignored. And I'll carve out my place in this world. Therefore, I will go to every guild, guilds including S rank, SS ranks, SSS ranks. The higher the rank, the more workers and more money I will get. Kale went on silent training. He had improved little bit, only little. On the next day, at the second-year class balcony, overlooking the central training courtyard, whispers passed from student to student like posting popular memes on Facebook. Suddenly, clap. All eyes turned in shock. Standing in the center of the balcony was Riku Virehart, the third-year rank 3, known across Arcadia as the Silver Reaper. Riku had silver hair tied back like a warrior, and he looked calm but strict. He seemed like the perfect example of someone powerful, noble, and dangerous. And kneeling slightly from the force of the slap was his younger brother, Kale Virehart, the second-year rank 1. Gasps rippled through the watching crowd. Riku's voice was strong, like commanding, and his one word was enough to freeze the air around him. You embarrassed me. Losing to a first year? You call yourself a Virehart. Kale's eyes widened, but he said nothing. His cheek reddened with the slap's mark, but his pride burned far deeper. Don't ever call me your brother, Riku said coldly, turning his back. You're a disgrace to the Virehart name. If you keep on doing like this, you will bring shame to our family and shatter the image of strength we've built. Riku walked off without looking back. The stunned silence lingered long after he disappeared. Second years stood frozen. Even the third years watching from afar had no words. The entire upper class had just witnessed one of the strongest students humiliate his own blood in public. Some murmured, "Wait, they're brothers?" Riku slapped Kale in front of everyone. He's furious that Kale lost to the first years. I heard Riku hasn't lost a duel in 2 years. This must have hurt their pride. Doesn't that mean the first years really made an impact? Back at the center of the balcony, Kale stood motionless. His lips trembled, not from the pain, but from the anger boiling like a pressure cooker. He muttered under his breath, voice low and sharp. Those weaklings, I'll make them pay. I'll crush them. Every single one of them. His eyes burned with fury, but also something deeper, resentment, humiliation, and now vengeance. The fire had been lit. Back to the first-year class. Elysia approaches Kale. Most students had gone outside for a break. Kale sat at his usual seat near the back, leaning over a worn notebook. Kale was busy thinking about the plan. Then, tap, tap, the soft footsteps approached. Kale glanced up to see Elysia standing on the side of his desk. Kale, she said softly, her voice barely audible over him. Yeah. She hesitated, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. Then directly, she asked, Is Cecilia your friend? Kale blinked. Of all the things he'd expected her to ask, this wasn't one of them. She was just curious, maybe even a little unsure. Yes, Kale said, simply nodding. She is. Elysia lowered her eyes slightly, as if processing the answer. Kale said honestly, She saved me. Twice, actually. That surprised her. Saved you. Once during the forest ambush, and once during our training. There was a small pause. I see. She gave a soft smile. You don't talk much, but you got a friend? I just remember who helped me when no one else did. Elysia nodded, then quietly stepped back. Thanks for answering, she said. You're a good person, Kale. She walked away before he could respond. Kale sat there, watching her go. Then, without a word, he began to plan on earning coins. The fragments of those lost land maps, if I can find all of them, not only will I get coin, but also an unknown power. Kale, thinking. The first map fragment. According to the novel, it's located in the city of Greylight, a fog-covered trade city filled with antique vendors. The place where even the demon lord once walked in disguise. He looked at his notebook, flipping to a blank page. Slowly, he began writing down notes on planning what to do. The merchant there, he only trades with ancient coins. That's the tricky part. In the original story, the demon lord cleared a forgotten dungeon near Greylight. He fought, he won, but still didn't get the map. Kale frowned. Why? Because the dungeon gave coins, but the merchant wanted ancient coins, not normal treasure. And those coins, the demon took them, never realizing they were the key. He never returned. Kale tapped his pen against the desk. That means those coins are still out there. If I can find them first, earn them the right way, I might be able to get the first fragment of that map. But since coins are with them, that means ancient coins are with the demons. So how do I locate them? Demons might probably have hidden coins deep in their supply caches or vaults. But I want to find out what the novel was trying to imply. Did the demons take the ancient coins, or did they already possess them from the beginning? There's only one way to know. I have to go there. For now, I can't just walk into a demon stronghold directly. He closed his eyes for a moment, thoughts sharp like blades. He flipped to a new page in his notebook. So here's the new plan. First, travel to the city of Greylight and confirm the merchant's location. Second, get information about the coin, appearance, signature, or enchantment. Third, track underground traders linked to the future battles. Fourth, take them down. Finally, return to the merchant and trade it for the fragment. Kale exhaled slowly. I don't have power yet. Not enough to storm enemy camps. But if I use stealth, traps, and timing, I could take out the weaker ones and search for their loot. It's not about fighting stronger enemies. It's about outsmarting them. He closed the notebook, eyes flickering with quiet determination. I'll recover what the demon lord couldn't use. I will find a way. The next day. The first and foremost thing for Kale is to find the lost land, and he had already planned what to do next. The training starts at morning 9 a.m. and ends at evening 4:30 p.m. I will skip today's training at dorm and gymnastics, and I will be left with 8.5 hours. That's plenty of time. Before the weekend, I will make money going to higher rank guilds, collect, and work hard as much as I can. For one completion of guild, it will take 3 hours. That means I should at least complete working 2 times every night after the class. That makes 6 times of participation before this week ends. Perfect, I shouted energetics. The whole class looked at me. I forgot we were at ground zero. Sorry, I said. The next day, Kale woke up with one goal in mind: find the lost land. He had already planned his next steps carefully. Training starts at 9 a.m. and ends around 4:30 p.m., he thought, checking the academy schedule again. He tapped his notebook, eyes focused. I'll skip today's training in my dorm and the gymnastics class at the end. That gives me around 8.5 hours of free time. That should be enough. He sat upright, energized. Before the weekend, I'll take on jobs from higher-rank guilds. Even if I'm weak now, I can at least do collection quests and scouting. Each guild task takes roughly 3 hours, which means I can complete 2 every evening after classes. If I stick to it, I'll finish 6 jobs by the weekend. Kale's eyes lit up as he grinned to himself. Perfect. There'll be plenty of money to go to the city of Greylight. Then he suddenly shouted, "Perfect!" The entire class turned to look at him in stunned silence. Kale blinked. Then he remembered they were still at Ground Zero, the Academy's main training hall. He awkwardly cleared his throat and muttered, "Sorry." Everyone went back to their own business, and Kale stood alone, face slightly red but heart still racing with motivation. Kale stood at the edge of the training field, wearing the new Academy uniform Cecilia had gifted him. It was a perfect fit. The fabric was stronger, the colors were bright, and for the first time, he didn't look like an extra. He looked like he belonged. Then, without delay, he started running laps. 1 lap, 2 laps, 10, 50. His feet hit the ground again and again. Sweat poured down his face, but he didn't stop. Training went on. Sword drills, mana resistance, physical endurance. But even after the long day ended, Kale didn't rest like the others. Each evening, when the sky darkened and students returned to their dorms, Kale quietly left Arcadia Academy and headed to the nearby city of Elysia through the terminal using the student discount. He wore a plain cloak and a black mask, hiding his face. In the city, he entered various guild halls contacting from the guild notice board, not as a student or hero, but as a nameless collector. He took on quests that others ignored, finding rare herbs in dangerous fields, helping clear weak monster nests, solving old puzzle ruins left abandoned. No one knew his name. No one knew where he came from. And every night he returned. Kale didn't waste a single minute. While others rested, he worked. While others joked in the dorms, he earned. He kept moving forward, chasing a goal no one else could see. By the end of the week, Kale checked his purse hidden inside his cloak. He counted carefully, 1,800 gold coins and 30 silver coins. This is enough for the next step, the first map fragment. He closed the pouch, eyes calm and determined. The path ahead was still long, but Kale was already far ahead of the rest. This is it. Kale packed the few belongings he had. His last mana elixir, a piece of hard bread wrapped in cloth, and the notebook where he'd jotted down all his plans. He double-checked everything, slipped the book in his pouch, and left his dorm. At the city terminal, he handed over a silver coin to the gate officer and boarded the carriage heading toward Elysia, the capital and central hub of the state. According to the novel, Elysia was the center of the state. Everything passed through it at some point. But once Kale arrived, things didn't go as planned. He stood in the middle of the bustling city, surrounded by stone towers, glowing signboards, and crowds of people moving like rivers. And yet, he had no idea where Greylight City was. The novel had mentioned the city's name, but never explained its location. For the next 2 hours, Kale wandered from one end of Elysia to the other, walking from terminal to terminal, checking every map, asking vendors and station guides. But no one seemed to know about Greylight City. His feet ached, his dress was dusty, and his hope was starting to wear thin. Maybe this trip was a mistake. Just as he was about to turn back for the day, something caught his eye in a narrow passage, a faded green signboard, old and half-covered in grass. In bold, crooked letters it read, "Liberation of Failure. Caution, do not enter." Kale froze. "Liberation of failure?" he whispered. That wasn't in the novel. He racked his brain, flipping through memories of every chapter, every side note in the lore. Nothing. Not a single mention of this place. He hesitated at that passage's edge. Should I turn back? No. If I leave now, this whole day would have been for nothing. Even if it turned out to be a dead end, Kale thought, at the very least, he might find a clue about where Greylight City really was. He tightened his grip on his bag and stepped toward the entrance, into the unknown. He stopped, and looked back to the signboard again. Caution, do not enter. Although the city is vast, this is the only option I have got. He turned away and paid the coin. Cale stepped up to the terminal gate and handed over the coins. No student discount. He kept his hood covering his whole body. They can't know I'm from Arcadia Academy. Not here. Once the payment was made, the gate opened with a soft click, and he walked through alone. The path ahead was narrowed as I got deeper and deeper. At first, it seemed like just another old road. But with each step, the world seemed to shift. The deeper he walked, the darker the sunlight became, like clouds were swallowing the sky from above. The air grew heavier, and the bright noise of the city faded behind him. Even the signboards, once clear and glowing, now flickered and blurred, like they were being erased by the shadows around them. Cale glanced at his watch. His eyes widened. What? The time. Is it running faster? The seconds were spinning faster. Then he realized, this place, it's not normal. He calculated the speed of the seconds compared with that world. The time in this strange path flowed 3 times faster than the real world. That means he stopped walking for a moment, standing still in the twilight. Does this arc even exist in the novel? He murmured. He searched his memory, flipping through every plotline he knew, but nothing came up. No name, no mention. It feels like I crossed into a different realm. He looked ahead, where the path twisted and faded into a fog. Curiosity, possibility. This place wasn't written about, which means whatever lies ahead, even the original characters never saw it. Cale took a deep breath, tightened his grip on his bag, and continued walking forward, into the unknown. After 1 hour of walking inside, 1 hour in that place, he reaches the place known as quieting. Inside the quieting, sound disappears. Only your own thoughts are heard. Then, the shadows began to move. At first, there were just faint shapes in the mist, blurry outlines with no faces. But slowly they took form. People, or at least they looked like people. Figures appeared around him, walking aimlessly, some kneeling, some crawling. They whispered softly, their voices twisted and broken. Help me. I want to get out. This is it. It ends here. The voices echoed from all directions, mixing into an eerie, broken sound. BS, SSSSSSS. One of the shadow reached out toward him, but the hand passed through his shoulder like smoke. They weren't real. It was an illusion. Lost spirits trapped in this strange place. Echoes of failure. Despair made flesh. Cale didn't say a word. He rarely did anyway. Quiet by nature, he simply observed, cautious and alert. Then, on his right side, he saw something that made him tense. A figure stood still, facing him. Not just any figure. It was himself. The other version of himself. His height, his face, his clothes. Even the scar on his palm, it was all the same. Like a mirror with no glass. The other Cale simply stood there, unmoving. Cale narrowed his eyes. He wasn't fooled. This is an illusion, he whispered under his breath. But instead of fading, the other Cale spoke. You're chasing something you don't understand, it said calmly. You think knowledge is enough to change fate. Cale remained still. I know what I should do, he replied. Then he stepped forward, and the moment he did, a massive pressure slammed into his head, like his mind had been struck by thunder. He dropped to one knee, grabbing for breath as pain stabbed through his skull. Everything began to spin. The shadow world, the voices, the other version of himself. And in an instant, just 1 second, flash, he was gone. Cale opened his eyes. He was back, standing alone at the terminal, the faded green signboard still glowing faintly in the distance behind him. His heart was still pounding. His forehead was drenched in cold sweat. He had no injuries, no wounds. Something inside him had shifted. He stared at his shaking hands and whispered, "What was that place? Was it a trap? A test? A memory?" He didn't know, but one thing was certain. That was not part of the original novel. The moment I talked back, I was here. Cale stood at the terminal, still catching his breath. The world around him had returned to normal. Bright skies, people walking past, the distant hum of city life. But his mind was still stuck in that strange, shadowy world. His eyes narrowed slightly. But why? Does that mean I wasn't supposed to talk to them? He replayed the moment again in his head. The shadows, the lost spirits, the strange version of himself. He had held it together through the illusions. He didn't speak, didn't respond. But the moment he opened his mouth and spoke to his reflection, everything ended. So if I speak to them, either I'll be sent back, or maybe even worse, I'll get trapped there forever. Kale's expression turned serious. Those spirits, they weren't real. They were probably tests. He reached into his pouch and pulled out the small watch he always carried. His eyes widened slightly as he checked the time. Only 20 minutes have passed since I went in. He frowned, but inside, it felt like a full hour. That confirmed it. Time moves differently there. Just like I suspected. 1 real-world minute equals 3 minutes inside. His heart beat a little faster. That's actually good. That means I can spend more time exploring that place without wasting much time in the real world. He looked back toward the narrow path, where the green sign, Liberation of Failure, still glowed faintly in the distance. Most people would have walked away. Most people would have taken this as a warning to never return. But Kale was not like most people. He adjusted his cloak, eyes fixed on the entrance. If I stay calm and don't talk, I can go deeper. I can understand the missing piece of fragments. I need to try again. Without hesitation, he stepped forward once more, toward the illusion, toward the path no one else dared to take. Because sometimes the key to power was in the places everyone else. Kale stepped in the terminal once more. He didn't speak. He didn't react to the whispers or shadows. But he again spoke accidentally, and again he was sent back to the terminal. Kale stepped back into the hidden path for the 3rd time. The shadows whispered. Faint, broken voices echoed around him, just like before. Help me. I want to leave. Don't forget me. He kept his hood low and walked straight ahead, ignoring the illusions. His heart pounded, but he stayed silent. This time he was prepared. Don't speak. No matter what happens, don't respond. He moved through the ghostly forms like wind through smoke. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time twisted strangely here. His watch spun faster again, reminding him that he was in a realm where logic bent and reality frayed. Then it happened. A voice. It didn't whisper like the others. It spoke clearly, firmly, and it sounded exactly like his own. You know this will never work, right? Kale stopped. His breath caught. It was himself again. The mirrored version of Kale stood in the mist, arms folded, watching with a cold, knowing gaze. Kale clenched his jaw. It's not real. It's just a test. He took a step forward, about to push past the illusion. But then by instinct he spoke. Just 2 words. Not true. And instantly, boom, a heavy force struck his mind like thunder. His vision blurred. His body felt weightless, like it was being yanked through time and space. In the blink of an eye, flash, he was back, standing once again in front of the faded green signboard, breath ragged, forehead dripping with sweat. Damn it, he muttered, frustrated. He had failed. Again. But he didn't give up. Kale sat at the nearby bench for a few minutes, calming his racing heart. Then quietly he stood up and went back in. And again, and again. Each time he walked deeper into the strange realm, the spirits would come. The illusions would try to speak. And no matter how much he prepared, somehow, he always slipped up. A small word, a reaction, even a breath of doubt. And every time he responded, he was thrown out. Back to the terminal. Back to the beginning. But Kale didn't stop. He failed. But he returned. He failed again. But he went even further the next time. Each failure taught him more. He began learning the pattern, where the illusions stood, how long they lingered, what triggered the visions. He adjusted his breathing, his walking pace, even his thoughts. He trained not just his body, but his will. Because this wasn't a trial of strength. This was a trial of control. And Kale knew, if I want to uncover what lies ahead, I have to master this realm. No matter how many times he failed, he kept walking forward. One step at a time. Once again he walked again. He just walked silently, deeper and deeper into the same mysterious path as before. The surroundings grew darker again. The air turned colder. The light from above faded slowly, and the strange fog returned. But Cale kept going, step by step, quietly. Then finally he saw it. A worn wooden sign in the distance, glowing faintly through the mist. The letters carved into it were old, but still clear. Graylight. His heart raced. I made it, he thought. He stopped for a moment and pulled out his notebook. Flipping to a page filled with notes and scribbles, he looked at the checklist he had written earlier. Step 1. Find a merchant's location. Cale's eyes were full with determination. As Cale entered the fog-covered city of Graylight, he didn't rush or draw attention. He kept his cloak pulled low, hiding his face, and quietly moved through the narrow stone streets. The city was confusing. Is this city of Graylight? Buildings leaned at strange angles. Ivy hung from rooftops like curtains. The whole place felt old, like time had forgotten it. Names on the streets vanish as he reads them. It feels like a memory. Everywhere, people whispered instead of shouting. Smoke rose from small food stalls, but even the fires seemed dimmer in the mist. Cale walked slowly and watched carefully. He noticed the areas in the city. Vendors sold simple goods, fruit, meat, tools, old boots, scrolls. Most people here were travelers and forgotten heroes. Cale thought, too public. The hidden merchant would be somewhere. There were some parts where it was very quiet. The buildings looked ruined and ancient. Even the signs above the doors had no names, just faded symbols or numbers. Some alleyways twisted unnaturally, like they didn't belong. Cale's eyes narrowed. He could feel it. Something was different here. He watched how people behaved. In the outer districts, people laughed and traded freely. In the inner district, they walked quickly, heads down, never looking into the alleys. Cale followed one of those narrow alleys. It was small, just enough space for one person to walk. And above it hung 3 old red lanterns, dusty and unlit. He stopped, heart beating a little faster. This place, and the 3 red lanterns. This must be it. Cale didn't rush in. He knew the merchant was hidden and wouldn't appear without a reason. But now he knew the location. He pulled out his notebook, turned to a clean page, and wrote down. Merchant's location found. Inner district, 3 red lanterns. Equals 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 equals. Cale went inside a dimly lit shop in the heart of Graylight City. Shelves are packed with many gems, dusty scrolls, and glowing stones. An old merchant sits behind the counter. Merchant saw Cale enters the shop. He looked carefully at him. You're not from around here. Cale, low voice had still on. I came for a trade. I need the map fragments. Merchant, map fragments? You mean those? Not for free. I only trade for ancient coins. Cale frowns. I don't have any ancient coins. But where can I find them? What do they look like? Do you have any clue? Merchant leans back slowly. 2 centuries ago, a man came. Half demon, half human. By looking at his appearance, he seems to be strong. He had completed the quest and earned an ancient coin. Pauses, but he never returned. Cale, what happened to him? Merchant, no one knows. Some say he entered the strength to that of God level. With this much power, it will be useless for that coin. Ancient coins look normal like others, but only have palm shapes on its front. Cale, but I want to trade. I need the map fragments. Is there anything I can trade for? Merchant, then bring me what I ask for. No ancient coins, no map. I don't deal in hope. I deal in price. There was no room for negotiation. Cale clenched his fists lightly, then slowly turned away. The city of Graylight was quiet, but not in a peaceful way. The streets felt like echoes, like voices that were once loud had gone silent. A thick fog rolled over the cracked stone streets, making it hard to see clearly. The narrow paths between old, abandoned houses twisted and turned like a confusing maze, leading deeper into the strange, forgotten part of the city. Cale looked around, eyes slightly narrowed. Graylight, a city of forgotten stories. That line echoed in his head. He remembered it now, written faintly between chapters in the original novel. A place where discarded characters live, those who slipped out of the main plot, forgotten by the author, left without purpose. It made sense why the demon lord never returned after coming here. A city where those who forget their names stay forever. It wasn't just mysterious, it was dangerous. A place where time, memory, and story all blurred. No wonder the novel skipped this arc entirely. Then he looked down with disappointed. No ancient coins. Not yet. I'll come back, Cale muttered under his breath. With what you want. Without another word. He turned and walked back the way he came, through the fog, through the fading alleyways, back toward the terminal. The green signboard, Liberation of Failure, still flickered dimly in the mist. He stepped through it quietly, and just like that, Cale returned to the real world. The sky was brighter here, the air clearer, but the weight in his chest still lingered. Now I know why no one returned. But I'm not them. I'll find that coin. He looked back at the gate one last time, then turned toward Arcadia. It was time to plan his next move. After 1 hour, he reached back to his dorm. If the demon lord has completed the quest, then he must have gotten the ancient coin. So it has to still exist somewhere, just hidden. Cale thought to himself, I have to find that coin no matter what. But first, I need to get stronger. He checked his schedule and remembered. Tomorrow is a day off. That's perfect. I'll use it to hunt beasts. It will help me earn money and grow stronger at the same time. But as for today, he had a different plan. I'll go train in the gymnastics hall and work on my sword skill, Astral Severance. I need to master it. With a serious look in his eyes, Cale stood up, ready to use every second to move one step closer to the hidden power. Same day at the kingdom of Eldraveth. At the market, the street was crowded and noisy. Sellers were shouting, and colorful lanterns lit up the foggy road. Edwin's eyes widened. Weapons were everywhere, displayed, hung, glowing, humming with energy. There were swords with sharp, rough edges, spears shining with lightning symbols, and staffs giving off strange magical energy. Blood-forged dagger. Guaranteed soul damage, one vendor called. Elemental twin blades. Half price, shouted another. Edwin wandered from booth to booth. Almost every item cost more than 100 gold coins. Coming from a prestigious family, he never had to worry about money. One of the swords gave off a soft purple fog, like it was covered in magic. Another sword shook slightly inside its cover, as if it was alive or reacting to something nearby. This staff will make your special family powers stronger, an old seller said quietly, pointing at a worn-out stick with a glowing red center. Edwin shook his head. Just looking, Edwin stopped in front of a curved sword. It didn't look fancy, but he could feel a steady power coming from it. How much does this cost? He asked the seller. 75 gold coins, the vendor replied. Edwin sighed. So cheap. Oh, come back later, he said and turned away. Even though the market was full of weapons, he didn't like the quality and the products. Just as he was walking back to the portal. Stop that thief, someone shouted loudly. Edwin quickly turned around. A man wearing a hooded cloak came running past him. The man was holding something tightly. A group of royal guards, dressed in fancy armor and holding weapons, were chasing after him. The man suddenly tripped and fell. As he hit the ground, something fell out of his pocket. It slid across the stone street and stopped right in front of Edwin. Edwin looked down. It was a small metal disc covered in strange, glowing symbols. It looked magical, and it gave off a soft golden light. It was a rock that was curved. Without thinking, Edwin bent down and picked it up. You there! Give that back right now, one of the guards yelled, pointing at Edwin. Edwin stared at the object. It felt hot in his hand and surprisingly heavy for its size, probably weighing about 7 kilograms. What is this thing? He muttered. He paused for a moment, unsure what to do. Then, he made a decision. He ran. He sprinted down the street, dodging market stalls and people. Wooden barrels rolled past him. People shouted. Vendors tried to move out of the way. Stop him, more guards yelled. Edwin kept running. He turned into a narrow alley, knocking over crates to block the path behind him. His chest hurt from breathing so hard, and his legs burned with pain. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. At the edge of the market, it was the exit point of the terminal. If he's running away with it, Then it surely doesn't belong to the royal. I should return to the original owner of this unknown thing. There was no time to think. He left quickly, and just as the guards reached the area, Edwin disappeared. After reaching the main terminal at Elysia, Edwin didn't linger. He quickly boarded a connecting terminal and made his way home, just like any other evening. Unlike the boarding students who lived within Arcadia's dormitories, Edwin was a day scholar. He traveled between the academy and his family home every day. By the time he arrived, the sky outside had darkened, and the city lights flickered faintly in the distance. He opened the front door to his quiet, two-story house and stepped inside. He quickly went to his room. When Edwin reaches home from the dining room, glows softly with warm lantern light. The smell of freshly cooked food drifts through the air. Mother, calling from the kitchen. Edwin, dinner's ready. Come eat before it gets cold. Edwin, from his room, voice slightly distant. Not now, Mom. I'm a bit busy. Father, poking his head into Edwin's room. Busy? You've been locked in here since you came home. You barely even greeted us. Edwin, sitting at his desk, eyes fixed on a glowing stone. Sorry, it's just something happened today. I found something, or rather, it found me. Mother, arriving at the doorway, concerned. You're not hurt, are you? Edwin shakes head, distracted. No, just confused. Father, stepping inside, raising an eyebrow. What's that on your desk? A rock. Edwin, it's not just a rock. It has mana, markings. It reacts to energy. And I think it's important, really important. I need to figure out what it is. Mother, soft sigh. You haven't eaten all day. Just take a short break, dear. You can study it after dinner. Edwin, glancing at the stone, conflicted. I'll eat later. I promise. Just give me a little more time. This might be something, and I want to return to its original owner. Father crosses arms. Oomph. You've got your mother's stubbornness. Mother smiles gently. All right, but don't skip meals, Edwin. Whatever that thing is, like you said, return to its owner. It's bad to steal someone's belongings. Edwin nods softly. Thanks. I will. Just let me focus a bit more. With a serious look. Do I look like I stole that thing? They leave quietly, and Edwin turns his attention back to the pulsing badge. He was still holding the strange stone. Edwin held the metal disc tightly in his right hand. It gave off a soft, golden glow, gently pulsing like a heartbeat. The disc was small and round, about the size of his palm. It felt warm against his skin, almost like it was alive. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, old markings that glowed faintly in the quiet, dim room. It looked mysterious, magical, and very, very old. He placed the stone gently down on the desk. It let out a soft hum as it touched the surface. Edwin stared at it in silence for a while. The markings, the glow, the strange weight in his palm. It didn't feel like a regular item. It felt alive somehow. What are you? He whispered, still catching his breath. Curious, he gathered a little mana in his fingertips and channeled it into the stone. For just a second, it reacted. A flicker of energy lit up the rune circle, but it vanished just as quickly. Edwin frowned. He tried again. A second pulse, a faint warmth, then nothing. Again. Each time, the stone warmed slightly and then went still. It wasn't broken, but it wasn't working either. He flipped it over, tapped it, turned in his hand, but there was no change. The badge sat stubbornly silent, glowing just enough to tease his curiosity. Frustrated, Edwin stood up and began to pace around his room. His mind spins with thoughts. He glanced back at the strange badge. I've never saw like this object before. He walked over, sat down again, and leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. He stared at the runes. He didn't know what the item was. He didn't know how it worked. But one thing was clear. The guards wouldn't have chased after that thief unless this object was important. And now it was in his hands. This might be something useful, Edwin whispered. He clenched his fingers around the disc. Otherwise, they wouldn't have risked a scene in the market for it. He exhaled slowly. But right now, how do I even activate it? He looked at that stone once more. He didn't know its purpose. He didn't know its origin. Maybe I should ask Mr. Orwin about this thing. Since he's also an expert in mana, he might know something about this stone. He gently sat back down. The house was quiet. His parents were asleep. He went to the kitchen and ate those expensive dishes as usual. I'll figure it out. I'll find a way. Under the pale moonlight, Cale stood alone in the Academy's gymnastics room, which keeps open the whole day and night, his pink shirt given by Cecilia soaked with sweat. His sword sliced through the air in sharp, precise arcs as he practiced astral severance, repeating the motion again and again until his arms burned. His breath came heavy, but his eyes remained sharp with focus. I spent 300 coins today, he thought, wiping the sweat from his brow. That leaves me with only 1,400. He gritted his teeth, stepping back in his stance and swinging again, faster, stronger. That's not enough. Not for the map. Not for anything. He remembered the cost of traveling, supplies, guild permits. Everything required coins and lots of them. The ancient coin was still out of reach, and time was running very fast. Tomorrow, I'll hunt beasts. As many as I can. I'll take every job. I need money, no matter how small. His blade whistled through the night once more. He didn't stop until the stars dimmed and his legs could barely hold him up. Because Cale knew, power alone wasn't enough. He needed coins, and fast. He practiced at night until it was 2 a.m. and went back to his dorm. He drank energy elixir and collapsed on his bed. It is a weekend holiday, and Cale wasn't about to waste it. He got up early, packed his equipment carefully, his sword, his water flask, dry bread, and healing items. He unbuttoned the jacket, folded it carefully, and laid it neatly on his bed. He removed the rest of his uniform and placed it inside his drawer, locking it shut. Then he pulled out a plain, dark color, and war-strong pants. Over that, he slipped on a faded brown cloak, one that covered most of his figure, especially with the hood up. It was something ordinary travelers or adventurers wore, not a student from one of the continent's top academies. He adjusted the cloak tightly around his chest and checked the fit. No badges, no emblems, nothing that gave away his identity. He didn't want anyone to recognize him as a student. He left quietly and made his way to the main terminal in Arcadia. Below the city of Elysia, there was a small town surrounded by wooden fences and patrolled by guards carrying spears and swords. It was a place where adventurers, mercenaries, and beast hunters gathered. Cale walked straight to the large notice board in the town square. The wind made the papers on it flap noisily. He looked through the bounties. The paper on the board slash. Wanted, feral rank beast fong, 300 gold each. Wanted, hardened beast bone, 176 gold each. Wanted, beast skin, tails, claws, organs, prices vary. High risk, decent pay. Cale looked carefully. Feral rank beast parts, that's dangerous. But I need the gold. He checked his pouch, 1,370 coins. Still not enough to buy anything he wanted and things he needed to go. He turned his eyes toward the dark forest in the distance. Duskfall Forest, a dense, misty place full of dangerous creatures. Still, Cale walked toward it without hesitation. Inside Duskfall Forest. By afternoon, Cale entered the forest. Thick trees blocked most of the sunlight. The air was cool and damp, and the ground was soft with fallen leaves. Every little sound, snapping twigs, rustling bushes, felt louder here. Suddenly, he heard heavy footsteps, and then he saw it. A feral rank beast stood just a few meters away. Its forehead was red. It was huge, taller than Cale, with thick black fur, sharp tusks, and glowing red eyes. It looked powerful and angry, like a monster that ruled this part of the forest. Cale immediately drew his sword and was ready to fight. "Let's see if I can handle you," he whispered. He charged forward first, swinging with speed, but the beast was quicker than he expected. It slashed with its massive claw and knocked Cale backward, sending him flying several meters. Cale crashed to the ground and rolled. His whole body hurt. Still, he got up and tried again. His sword barely cut through the thick hide. This isn't enough, he thought, pain shooting through his arm. The beast roared again and charged at him. Cale had no choice. He turned and ran. The ground shook behind him as the beast chased him through the trees. He jumped over roots, ducked under branches, and kept running. Finally, Kale spotted a narrow waterfall ahead, pouring over black rocks. He leapt through it, hiding behind the curtain of water. The beast skidded to a stop nearby, sniffed the air, and growled but couldn't find him. After a few moments, it turned and walked away. Kale stayed hidden for a while, breathing hard. His clothes were soaked, and his arms were trembling. I'm not ready for pharaoh-rank beasts. Not yet. I will look for lower-rank targets. After recovering a bit, Kale moved toward a safer part of the forest. There, he found lower-ranked beasts, still dangerous, but not as deadly. One by one, he tracked and fought them, waiting patiently, striking only when he had the advantage. He killed 6 beasts in a total of 7 hours. By the time the sun began to set, Kale was covered in dirt, blood, and sweat. He skinned the animals, collected fangs, claws, bones, and wrapped them in cloth. His arms ached, and his legs were sore, but he pushed through the exhaustion. As night fell, Kale returned to the hunting town. He walked through the gates, his cloak torn, boots muddy, and packed heavy with beast parts. He went straight to the merchant's counter at the marketplace below Elysia city. The vendor raised an eyebrow as Kale unloaded his materials. Not bad for something good, the merchant said. He counted the goods and placed 2,100 gold coins on the counter. You'd earn more if you brought back pharaoh-rank parts, he added with a smirk. Kale nodded silently, taking the pouch and adding it to his coins. Now he has 3,450 coins. Still not enough, but enough to hunt the maps for 2 weeks. End of the day. Kale went back to his dorm, carrying elixirs and mana vassal. Kale stood still for a moment, feeling the cool night wind against his face. He had faced danger. He had failed, but he hadn't given up, and he had grown stronger, little stronger than before. For that war, I have 2.5 years. Within that year, I have to grow stronger. Since the ancient coins are mostly in the hands of demons, finding even one will be nearly impossible through normal means. They're not items that I stumble upon. They might have been buried in chaos, blood, or forbidden quests. But I remember something from the original novel. An event happens right before the midterm exams. The student's mission, one that involves a demon's sudden attack near the western border. In the novel, it was treated like a minor disturbance, but the details hinted otherwise. One of the demons that appears during that arc. He might have some information. That means I already know when and where to look. If I prepare well, build up my strength, and join the mission along with the top rankers of our classmates, I might be able to intercept him. No one else should know. This is my chance. I don't need luck. I just need it. First day of the new week. The sun had just risen, and the academy grounds were already filled with students. It was the beginning of a new week, and everyone had gathered at Ground Zero, the wide training field used for morning exercises. All the students lined up in rows, ready to start their 200-lap endurance run. The signal was given, and everyone took off, running around the large circular track that surrounded the field. 20 minutes passed. Still, Kale hadn't arrived. Professor Sylvia narrowed her eyes, checking her list. Just as she was about to mark him absent, Kale finally appeared, panting slightly, his cloak flapping behind him. "You're late," Sylvia said, her voice calm but firm. Kale quickly bowed his head. "I'm sorry, Professor. I had a long night of diarrhea." He lied. Sylvia didn't scold him further. Instead, she gave a small nod. "Okay, now run. Time is finishing." Without another word, Kale walked to the starting line. He took a deep breath, steadied his posture, and began to run. At first, his speed was calm, but then he picked up speed. Faster and faster. In just 1 hour and 30 minutes, Kale completed all 200 laps, his body moving like a blur past other students who were still struggling with their first 100. By the time he crossed the final lap, he didn't even have the strength to stand. He collapsed onto the ground, chest heaving, clothes soaked in sweat. The field went silent. Everyone stared, stunned. Even Professor Sylvia's eyes widened in surprise. "He finished all 200 laps?" a student whispered. Sylvia stepped forward, watching Kale with a thoughtful look. She didn't say anything right away, but deep down, even she was impressed. Kale had pushed himself beyond limits, and it had not gone unnoticed. He actually did it. No way. Was he training all the time? From the sidelines, Elysia watched silently, with a serious side look. "I knew it," she said under her breath. He was hiding his strength all along. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she looked at him, collapsed, breathless, but clearly holding something back. "Till how much will you stay hiding your strength?" Professor Sylvia stepped forward. The students, still catching their breath from the morning drills, turned their attention to her. She clapped her hands once to get everyone's attention. "I have an important announcement," she began, with her calm tone. "Originally, there were supposed to be 2 major events before the midterm examination," she continued. "However, due to the recent incident, the Academy is still investigating. Because of this, we had a staff meeting and decided to cancel one of the events for safety reasons." Murmurs spread among the students. "So now, there will only be one official event before the midterms," she confirmed. "This event will take place next week, and I will explain all the details very soon. Until then, we will stick to our regular training schedule." Kale, standing at the back of the group. "Why is this happening now? There were supposed to be 2 events," he thought, confused. "If there's only one event left, then that means I have only one chance to move without drawing suspicion." His eyes narrowed. "I'll need to use that event to find the ancient coin, and I have to do it without anyone noticing. But why is it changing?" During the middle of the morning combat training, Edwin quietly slipped away. Without wasting time, he walked straight across the academy grounds and headed to the west building, where Professor Orwin's office was located. When he reached the door, he knocked politely. "Come in," said by Professor Orwin. Edwin stepped in and greeted the professor with a slight bow. "Sir, I wanted to ask for your help with something." He carefully took out the stone from his pocket, the one he had found in Elysia, and placed it on the professor's desk. Professor Orwin raised an eyebrow and leaned forward. "This was found in the city of Elysia," Edwin explained. "I'm not sure what it is, but I feel like it's not ordinary. Could you tell me anything about it? Its origin, or how it works?" Professor Orwin picked up the stone gently, observing the glowing runes etched into its surface. Interesting," he muttered. "Give me an hour. I'll examine this more closely." With that, he stood up, took the stone with him, and left for the Academy's library. Inside the quiet and dusty library, Professor Orwin sat down at a large wooden table, surrounded by stacks of ancient books. He pulled out a special magnifying glass and carefully inspected the rune markings. He flipped through several thick volumes, comparing the symbols with what he saw on the stone. Time passed slowly. It took almost a full hour, but eventually, Professor Orwin's eyes widened slightly. He had finally verified something about the rune stone. Mr. Orwin approached Edwin with a calm but serious expression on his face. He held the strange, glowing stone carefully in both hands, as if it were something sacred. "Edwin," he began, "I've examined this thoroughly. What you're holding is no ordinary item." He paused, then continued, "This is a spirit rune, or, as it's sometimes called, an ancient tablet. It's extremely rare and very powerful." Edwin's eyes widened slightly. "Spirit rune?" Mr. Orwin nodded. "Yes, these runes are not man-made. They were abstracted from the higher beast ranks, likely created or left behind by powerful beings. Beasts of great strength, especially those beyond dread rank, guard these runes with their lives. Anyone who possesses one must have taken a great risk to obtain it." He looked at Edwin carefully. "It holds spiritual energy, something ancient, something alive." Edwin leaned forward slightly, listening closely. "To activate it, you must pour a bit of your mana into the rune and a drop of your blood. Only then will the rune respond to you," Mr. Orwin explained. "If it accepts you, it may unlock something, a power, a skill, maybe even a memory of someone long forgotten." He placed the rune back into Edwin's hands. "Spirit runes don't appear to just anyone. The fact that this came to you means it chose you. Don't ignore that." Edwin stared at the glowing rune in his palm. "You should activate it, absorb whatever energy lies within, and learn what it has to offer," Mr. Orwin said firmly. Then he stepped back and smiled faintly. "Be careful. This is no small thing." Edwin nodded slowly, gripping the rune tightly. "Thank you, sir." Without another word, he turned and left the office, the spirit rune glowing softly in his hand. In his private training room, after leaving Professor Orwin's office, Edwin walked quietly through the academy grounds. The sky outside was bright, and most students were busy training on their day. He didn't speak to anyone as he made his way to his training room. He closed the door behind him, locking it. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the spirit rune, the glowing stone tablet that Professor Orwin had returned to him. It still shimmered faintly in his palm, warm to the touch, as if it was breathing. Edwin sat down cross-legged on the floor, placed the rune in front of him, and took a deep breath. "Let's do this," he whispered. He placed both hands around the rune, closed his eyes, and focused. First, he poured a stream of his mana into the stone. A soft hum echoed in the room as golden lines began to glow brighter across the surface. Then, with a sharp breath, Edwin bit the tip of his finger and let a few drops of blood drip onto the rune. The moment his blood touched the stone, it reacted. Flash! A bright golden light exploded from the rune, lighting up the entire room. The markings on the stone began to move, twisting and reshaping like they were alive. Then, something unexpected happened. The rune rose into the air and began to float above his hands. Suddenly, the light shot toward him, straight into his chest. "Ah!" Edwin screamed, falling back as intense pain surged through his body. It felt like fire was rushing through his veins. His body trembled violently. His hands clenched into fists. His heart raced, and his vision blurred. The power from the rune was trying to merge with his soul, and it burned like liquid fire inside him. He gasped, curling forward, sweat pouring down his face. His bones ached. His muscles twitched. The pain wasn't just physical. It felt like something ancient and powerful was digging into his spirit. Still, Edwin didn't let go. He held onto the feeling, letting the light enter deeper, even though it felt like he was going to be torn apart. Slowly, the light began to calm. The golden glow dimmed, and the rune cracked, then crumbled to dust in his hand. But the energy didn't vanish. It had merged with him. Edwin lay on the floor, gasping for air, his shirt soaked with sweat. His body still tingled. Something had changed inside him. "It's inside me now," he whispered, eyes wide. Though the pain had faded, the power remained, quiet but strong, like a spark waiting to be unleashed. Whatever the spirit rune had given him, it might be something. After awakening from the spirit rune, Edwin's eyes slowly opened. The ceiling above him was familiar. It was inside his training room. But for a moment, he wasn't sure if he was still dreaming or awake. His vision was hazy, and the sunlight streaming through the window stung his eyes. His entire body felt sore, like he had been crushed under a mountain. His limbs were stiff, his muscles aching with every breath. He blinked again. "Where am I?" he whispered hoarsely. The last thing he remembered was pouring all his mana into the spirit rune, and then adding a drop of his blood. Then, the explosion of light, blinding and golden, had filled the room. He had crushed the rune in his hand, and what followed felt like his soul was on fire. A burning sensation had torn through his body, like every nerve was being lit from within. It wasn't just pain. It was unbearable, like something ancient and powerful was forcing its way into his body and mind. And then nothing. He had blacked out. Now, as he slowly sat up, his hands trembling, Edwin realized he had been unconscious for a long time. His breath was shaky. His heart still thumped loudly in his chest. He glanced at the wall, and his eyes widened. The stone wall was cracked. The wall was cracked badly, and the cracks are branching out everywhere, looking like a spider web pattern. Swords were scattered across the room. The desk had large marks left, and even the edge of the dumbbell frame looks bent. "What happened?" he murmured, barely able to believe the destruction around him. Then he noticed them. Two people standing quietly in the corner of the room. It was Jean and Elysia. They had been watching over him, staying silent the entire time. "You're finally awake," Jean said, stepping forward slowly. Edwin turned his head to him, still dazed. "What are you doing here?" Elysia crossed her arms. "We heard screaming from all the way down the hall." Jean nodded. "It sounded like someone was being tortured." We rushed over, and the door wasn't even locked. We came in and saw you thrashing on the ground, Elysia added. You were covered in golden light, and your body was shaking. The walls cracked when you punched them. You weren't in control, Jean said seriously. It looked like your body was going wild, like it was rejecting something or trying to accept something way too strong. We tried to stop you, Elysia added, but the strength you have in the room was too intense. It was like a storm. Eventually, Jean said, you stopped moving. We thought you. He paused, not finishing the sentence. But then we noticed you were still breathing. Elysia continued softly. So we waited. We didn't want to move you too soon. Edwin stared at his hands. They were bruised and slightly burned, still shaking. There were cuts across his knuckles from when he had slammed them into the wall without knowing. I don't remember any of that, Edwin said quietly. I just remember the light, and then it felt like something alive was trying to enter me, like a voice of force. He placed a hand on his chest. Something had definitely changed. He could feel a warm, steady pulse deep inside him, almost like a second heartbeat, but one made of energy. The spirit rune was no longer in his hand. It had been absorbed. Whatever it had given him, it was now part of him. Are you okay now? Elysia asked after a moment. Edwin looked up at her, his breath finally starting to calm. I think so, he said. I don't fully understand it yet, but I survived. Jean gave a small grin. You're lucky. The thing almost killed you. No, Elysia said, her tone serious. He's not just lucky. His body withstood something that would have killed an ordinary person. Did you crack a rune or a powerful talisman? Jean asked. I activated a spirit rune, he replied. She looked Edwin in the eye. That wasn't normal Edwin. That was something very powerful. Even Jean would be blown a few meters away if he absorbed that. Hey, I'm not that weak. I can absorb too, he replied. Edwin nodded slowly. He still felt like he was dreaming, but the reality was clear. He had awakened something. And now the question was, what had awakened inside him? To the training ground. Sound of clashing swords, bursts of magic, and sharp shouts filled the air. Everyone was busy, pushing their limits, practicing combat forms, honing their spells, and refining their mana control. Kale was among them, moving through sword drills and dodging sparring attacks. Sweat dripped down from his face. His arms ached. His breathing grew heavier with each passing minute. Eventually, the exhaustion caught up with him. Wiping the sweat from his brow, Kale stepped away from the training ground and made his way toward the academy's front garden. One of the few quiet spots where a water fountain stood beneath a large willow tree. He sat down on the bench nearby and took a long drink from his flask, letting the cool water soothe his dry throat. Just then, soft footsteps approached from behind. It was Cecilia. She looked slightly hesitant as she walked up to him. Kale noticed the way she fidgeted with her fingers before speaking. Are you free this evening? She asked, slightly nervous. Kale blinked, caught off guard. What? Cecilia glanced away for a moment, then looked back at him with a small smile. Would you walk with me? Just until the junction near my home. Kale gave a small nod. Okay. Cecilia's smile widened, and for a moment, neither of them said anything. Later that evening, most students had already returned to their dorms, and some went home, but one girl lingered at the exit gate, standing with her arms crossed and a very suspiciously forced look of casual calm. Cecilia glanced left, then right, then checked again. Still no Kale. She waited patiently. A little while ago, Cecilia had to come up with clever and tricky excuses to leave her friends without making them suspicious. Oh, I can't come with you guys, she'd said sweetly to Elysia, Edwin, and Jean. I have to, speak to Professor about the healing mana. Yes, very important. Might take a while. Jean blinked and nodded. Edwin, already halfway out the door, hadn't even noticed. But Elysia had narrowed her eyes. Healing mana? You don't even concentrate in class. Cecilia laughed awkwardly. Oh, well, I'm auditing it for fun. Education never ends, right? Elysia didn't look convinced, but thankfully Edwin had shouted something about the guilds, a strong hero of the state, at the city of Elysia, and that was enough of a distraction. Now, Cecilia was waiting, her nerves rising by the second. They had left, and a few minutes had passed. At last, footsteps echoed down the stone path. Cale appeared, casually adjusting the strap of his bag. He stopped when he saw her. "You're actually here," he said, blinking. Cecilia crossed her arms. "Of course I'm here. You almost weren't." "I had to run back and change," Cale said. "Didn't want to walk around in a shirt soaked in sweat. You'd faint from the scent alone." Cecilia raised an eyebrow. "Oh, please. I trained next to Jean for a month. I've already smelled worse." Cale snorted. "Fair enough." Gave a fake smile. They started walking. For a moment, it was quiet. Then Cale glanced at her. "So, why exactly are we walking to your place? Do you have something urgent to say?" Cecilia smirked. "I just wanted to talk." She giggled. "I told Elysia I had to see a professor," Cecilia said casually, "because if she saw me walking with you, I'd be subjected to a 3-hour lecture titled Cecilia, Protecting Your Reputation from Questionable Men." Cale chuckled. "So, I'm your bad secret now." She gasped dramatically. "Excuse me, I never said that." "You heavily implied it." She was joking and teasing him. "Can you really blame me for thinking you're silly? You literally fell over your own sword again and again." "That happened last time," Cale grumbled. "And the sword was cursed." "Probably." Cale was embarrassed. He says it only happened when he trains and blames it on a cursed sword, though it was not to blame on the sword. "And totally cursed," she teased. Cecilia made fun of Cale for falling during training. Cale got embarrassed and tried to make an excuse. Cecilia kept teasing him, and Cale giggled with a face blush. "Because watching you is fun," Cecilia said. They strolled a bit farther, passing down below the city. Then, as they rounded a corner, Cecilia suddenly laughed to herself. "What?" Cale asked, eyeing her warily. "I just remembered something," she said between giggles. "Last winter, at home, I mixed up one of Grandfather's spiritual cleansing pills with the handmade soap bars Mother keeps in the bath." "What? What?" "I was trying to help clean up the kitchen and thought I'd put the pill on the medicine shelf. But I grabbed a bar of peppermint soap instead. Grandpa swallowed it a little, said it tasted like minty and sour, and spent the next hour foaming at the mouth while giving everyone life advice." Cale blinked. "And he survived?" "Oh yeah," Cecilia said proudly. "He said it cleansed all the waste in the body having diarrhea." Cale was laughing now. "I would pay to see that. My mother still hides the soaps from me," she added. "I'm banned from helping with medicine." They both laughed, and for a while, and the sun was almost set. Then Cecilia slowed down a bit, her smile softening. "Cale, can I ask something?" He glanced at her. "Sure." She looked ahead as she asked, "Why are you always alone?" Cale blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift in tone. "You're always off on your own. In training, in class, even at lunch. You barely talk to anyone unless they come to you." Cale scratched the back of his neck. "I guess. I'm just used to it. Never really felt like I fit in." "But you're not hard to talk to," she said. "Annoying, yes, but not hard." He smirked. "Thanks, I think." "I'm serious," she said. "I notice you, you know. I just think you don't want to be around anyone." Cale was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "Maybe it's easier that way. Less noise. Less disappointment." Cecilia didn't push further. She just gave him a gentle smile. "Well, lucky for you, I'm very loud and very persistent. So consider yourself officially adopted into my chaotic social circle." Cale chuckled. "I don't get a choice?" "Nope." Eventually, they reached the junction near Cecilia's home. She stopped and turned toward him. "Thanks for walking with me," she said. "When you get free time, hope you'll walk with me." "Absolutely." Cale nodded, and they parted. Cale had grown a little feelings for Cecilia. Though they had a good time chatting, he wasted no time and went to the city to hunt for low-ranked beasts. At Edwin Leonhardt's home, Edwin stepped into his private training room and shut the door behind him. The quiet thud echoed through the walls, but his thoughts were louder. His body still trembled slightly from the sheer force burning inside him. Then after 2 hours, the pain occurs in his body. He clutched his chest, breathing hard. "The spirit rune, it's gone, but it didn't disappear. It became part of me." He stumbled forward, catching himself against the wall. His vision blurred for a moment, his pulse thundering in his ears. The mana within him was unstable, wild, violent, and surging like a storm. It was as if the rune had cracked open a gate inside him, flooding his body with energy too dense and potent to fully contain. The air around him shimmered faintly. Thin streaks of white-blue vapor escaped from his hands and forearms, pure mana steam, too concentrated to remain bound. It hissed quietly, like boiling water released into open air. He gritted his teeth. His fingertips were glowing faintly. His veins pulsed with light. Too much, it's too much. Every breath he took sent a wave of pressure up his spine. He felt like he might explode at any moment. Yet, something was changing. Despite the storm inside him, his body wasn't breaking. It was adapting. He looked down at his arm. It felt heavier, but not in a bad way. His muscles had subtly tightened, defined. When he clenched his fist, the sound of air compressing followed. He blinked. Then, out of instinct, he walked to the training dummy in his own training room. One strike. Just a test. Edwin exhaled, raised his right arm, and launched a simple punch. Boom! The wooden dummy shattered on impact, pieces of it flying across the room. The entire frame collapsed with a loud crack, leaving only splinters behind. He stared at the wreckage, wide-eyed. That was a normal punch. He looked at his hand again, then his reflection in the mirror beside the weapon rack. His eyes glowed faintly with a soft, golden hue. The rune didn't just give me power, it awakened something inside me. But as the power surged, so did the pressure. The longer he stayed still, the more it felt like mana was leaking through every pore. He took a deep breath and sat cross-legged in the center of the room. I have to stabilize this, or I'll burn from the inside out. He formed a basic mana circulation stance, channeling the energy through his body the way Mr. Orwin had once taught. Except now, the flow was no longer a stream, it was a raging river. His entire core was evolving. His mana reserves were expanding, but it felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of fire. One wrong step, and he'd collapse. But one right step, he grinned slightly, despite the pressure. The spirit rune hadn't just increased his strength. It also strengthens the body. At Cecilia's home junction, right after Kale and Cecilia parted ways at the junction, Kale didn't return to his dorm. His destination this time was the southern hunting grounds, where mana beasts roamed freely once darkness fell. That night, he faced a claw-tail wolf, a low-ranked beast with bladed limbs and unnatural speed. It lunged for him from the shadows, but Kale's blade met it mid-leap, slicing through muscle and bone. He took a slash across his shoulder in return, but the beast fell. He didn't stop to rest. He stitched the wound with a makeshift herb wrap and moved on. When dawn came, he sold the beast, and Kale returned to the academy and attended training like nothing had happened. And then he did it again the next night, and the next, and the one after that. By the end of the week, Kale had hunted down 19 low-ranked beasts, most of them quick, vicious predators that struck from cover. But what earned him real attention, though no one at the academy yet knew, was the 2 feral-ranked beasts he'd managed to bring down on the 4th and 6th nights. The first was a stoneback boar, coated in hardened plates that could shatter swords. Kale had to bait it into charging off a cliffside and stab it in the throat while hanging from a tree root. The second was worse, a fire-toothed leopard with mana-infused fangs and a near-invisible presence in the dark. The battle left Kale half-conscious and with burn marks along his ribs. But he won, and he sold their cores, 21,000 gold coins, in 1 week. Enough to cover 3 months' worth of gear upgrades, elixirs, and materials. But there was no rest. While other students trained during the day and slept at night, Kale ran on and on. He took only 3 hours of sleep every night. Blisters formed beneath his gloves. His muscles ached. Sometimes, during class, his vision blurred for a moment before he blinked it away. He didn't brag. He didn't boast. In fact, no one knew his ultimate motive. But he kept moving, quietly, relentlessly. Monday morning, Arcadia Academy, Ground Zero. All first-year students gathered at Ground Zero, the Academy's main training area, a huge open space and tall flags showing Arcadia's symbol. Rows of students stood in uniform lines, whispering curiously among themselves. Some were excited. Others were clearly nervous. Cecilia was chatting casually with Elysia near the front, while Edwin and Jean stood stiffly to one side, glancing towards the stage. A moment later, Professor Sylvia stepped onto the raised platform. First years, I hope you all enjoyed your rest, because today marks the important events that we're going to help, and it also adds points in the midterm ranking. A few students straightened up instantly. Others looked at each other in confusion. You'll be participating in your first major off-campus event, the Shadow Labyrinth Trial, held at the mountain of Frostvale. Gasps spread through the crowd. Forgettable wasn't just a mountain. It was a legendary, mist-covered peak far to the north, rumored to have once been a battleground for fighters during the Forgotten War. Professor Sylvia continued, eyes scanning each group carefully. You will be split into small teams and transported via teleportation magic using Terminal. There, you will enter a large-scale simulation dungeon known as the Shadow Labyrinth. This trial is not a game. It is a carefully controlled test of your survival skills, teamwork, navigation, and endurance. There came Kale Ashford to the ground, 20 minutes late. She paused for effect. A few students shifted uneasily. And she continues. Inside the labyrinth, you will encounter mana-draining zones, illusion traps that reflect your deepest fears and failures, and wave-based monster ambushes. You must reach the core chamber before time runs out. Only teams that make it to the center with their light crystal intact will pass. Professor Sylvia pointed to it and spoke firmly. Each team will receive one of these crystals. Think of it as your lifeline. If it breaks, whether from being hit or if it runs out of mana, your team will be disqualified immediately. You'll be pulled out of the trial, and your chance to pass will be over. She gave the students a serious look, so protect it at all costs. Right away, whispers spread through the crowd. Wait, we have to keep that safe while fighting monsters. Can illusions break it? What if someone drops it? Kale glanced at the glowing crystal with a skeptical expression. A single fragile item in the middle of a dangerous dungeon full of monsters, traps, and illusions. He raised an eyebrow and thought to himself, of course, let's make it even harder. Professor Sylvia spoke. The Shadow Labyrinth is designed to prepare you for real-world chaos. It's not just about fighting. It's about making decisions when things fall apart. Who will lead? Who will carry supplies? Who will break first? Some students looked at their friends. Others looked down. Teams will be randomized, Sylvia added. Consider this a chance to grow. Kale narrowed his eyes slightly. Random teams? That didn't sound good. He had worked alone for so long. This could be a disaster. How am I supposed to find the ancient coin when we have to form a group? The event begins now, she concluded. You'll be given 1 hour to prepare, gather equipment, and assemble near the teleportation gate. From there, you'll be transported to the base of Mount Frostvale. Your trial starts the moment you enter the maze. One last note, there have been strange mana fluctuations recorded near Frostvale. Nothing dangerous, according to our scouts, but be aware. This trial may throw something unexpected your way. You all wait here for a few minutes. Then after a few minutes, she raised her voice. The group lists for the Shadow Labyrinth trial have been finalized. Instantly, murmurs rippled through the crowd. There will be 3 groups in total, she continued. Each group will enter the labyrinth from a different entrance, facing its own path and set of challenges. 2 groups will have 47 students, and 1 will have 46. With a quick hand movement, she gave the scrolls to her assistant, who put them up on the big notice board behind her. The students didn't wait to be told. They hurried forward, almost bumping into each other to see the names. Kale stayed near the back, watching as eager voices filled the air. I'm with Jean. No way. I'm in the same group as Elysia. Kale stepped forward slowly, his eyes scanning the paper when space finally cleared. He found his name near the bottom of Group 2. Group 2. Kale Ashford, Edwin Leon Hart, Cecilia. He blinked. Of all people. Cecilia? Edwin? It was an odd mix. Cecilia was loud, unpredictable, and completely opposite of Kale in almost every way. And Vela was sharp-tongued, blunt, and didn't play well with others. A weird group, but not a weak one. He stepped away from the board just as Edwin noticed him. "Guess we're together in a team," Edwin said with a smile. Cale gave a small nod. "Yes, we are." In the background, Jean and Elysia were reading their own group lists. "You're not with me?" Cecilia yells toward Jean, pouting dramatically. Jean smirked. "Enjoy your new group, Princess Haha." Students gradually began to disperse, chatting about their teams and heading home, and some heading to their own dormitory to pack for the trip. Cale, meanwhile, returned quietly to his dorm. He didn't have much to prepare, but what he did pack, he packed with precision. He laid out a few essentials: 3 mana elixirs, a healing elixir, and most importantly, a notebook. In it were rough notes. He'd been collecting the information from the novel, fragments of old maps, and the information about the ancient coin. "I doubt these will be exact," he thought, slipping the notebook into his inner coat pocket. "But any advantage is better than none." After 1 hour, all students had gathered at the teleportation terminal near the outer wall of the academy. Students formed in their groups, naturally. Some looked excited. Cale and Cecilia at the end. A moment later, Professor Elysia stepped forward, facing the gathered students. Her sharp eyes scanned the crowd before she raised her voice, firm and clear. "Since everyone is here, listen closely." The chatter slowed down immediately. "For this trial, we have assigned 3 professors to oversee each group. Though this is a simulation, the Shadow Labyrinth trial is still dangerous. You'll be facing powerful illusions, mana traps, and beasts. These assigned professors will monitor your progress and intervene if the situation becomes truly life-threatening." She held up 3 fingers and continued. "Professor Calden will be supervising Group 1. Professor Yulia will guide Group 2, and I will personally oversee Group 3. A few students looked around at their teammates, quietly murmuring their thoughts. "You will not see us unless something goes very wrong," Elysia added. "This is your test, not ours. But rest assured, we will be watching closely. Your teamwork, decision-making, and survival instincts are what matter most here." "Listen carefully," she began. "The trial takes place at Frostvale Mountain, I repeat, far to the north of here. It is a vast, rugged place, known for its thick forests, sharp cliffs, and cold, biting winds." She paused to let the words sink in. "Frostvale Mountain has only 3 known entrances into the Shadow Labyrinth dungeon beneath it. Because of this, we have divided all of you into 3 groups, 1 for each entrance." Some students nodded, understanding the reasoning. Others exchanged worried glances. A dungeon with only 3 ways meant there was no simple escape. Each group will enter the labyrinth at the same time, but through different entrances. Your progress will be separate, and you must work with your assigned team. She raised a hand to emphasize her next point. This event will last 2 full days. You will be in the labyrinth for that entire time, facing monsters, traps, illusions, and difficult puzzles. Your goal is to complete the quest in time. Her gaze swept across the crowd. "Only by working together will you survive. Protect your light crystal, share your resources, and watch each other's backs." As she finished, Cale felt a quiet resolve build inside him. 2 days trapped in a dangerous maze, he thought. But with 46 people in our group, and a strong hero like Edwin, we should be able to clear the way very fast. He glanced over at Edwin, who looked confident despite the challenge ahead. "If we move carefully, stay alert, and cover each other, we won't have any problems," said Edwin Leonhardt. "It's not just about brute strength. We need strategy and teamwork." "Yay!" crowd shout. As the crowd started to murmur again, Cale's mind drifted to the notes he had been keeping hidden in his coat, the fragments of maps in the novel. The thought of this mysterious coin sparked a small flame of hope in Cale's chest. Maybe it's an opportunity. Cale glanced at Cecilia nearby, who was chatting quietly with Edwin. Despite the looming danger, her presence brought a small comfort. "We'll need all the allies we can get.